Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of Crypt. I've been thinking, tell you, it has been a lot of fun doing these interviews, and I got another great interview lined up for this evening. Uh, it's been a real experience, and this has definitely been a topic that I found out the hard way. There is definitely both sides to this argument that are very dug in, and I'm obviously talking about the David Crowley case. Some say it was a murder suicide. Some say it was a setup and it was all just he was murdered and his family was murdered. So, I mean, there is definitely two camps involved in this case. And I found that out the hard way when I did my interview with Catherine. It was definitely eye opening to see how many people commented that, are taking a totally different approach to this case. And they say that there's enough evidence, there's enough facts out there to prove that it's exactly what the police say it was. It was a murder suicide, and David basically, out of the blue, snapped and did this to his family. So I find it very interesting, this case, and as I was thinking about it, it's very hard. I'm trying to stay right in the middle. I'm trying to look at both sides because I think that a great discussion is you got to hear both sides of it, and I am totally for that. I want to hear both sides. I want to hear the people that think that he's guilty and they have the evidence to prove that he's guilty, and I want to hear also from the side that says that he is, that he's not guilty or guilty. I want to hear both sides, is what I'm saying, and I'm trying to stay in the middle, which is very hard to do, but that is what I'm attempting to do. So I just want to start off by saying that if there is any people there that have an opposing view, either for him being guilty or not for being guilty, I am definitely willing to have an interview with you. I just ask that you keep it respectful. And if you want to leave some comments, that's great. I mean, I'm all for that. Like as I said, I want to hear both sides of this argument. And I just ask that you just don't put any links in my comments. If you do put any links in the comment section, I will remove those links because I'm not having links to other sites on my comment section. So, but feel free to leave a comment. And at the end of this interview, I'm going to definitely give out my email. And if you want to do an interview, you have a different point of view from what we're discussing today, then by all means, send me an email and we will definitely set up an interview. I'll get you on the show and we can discuss your point of view. Because as I said from the start, I'm just trying to ride this in the middle and I'm very interested in hearing both sides. So without further ado, you don't want to sit here and listen to me babble for on and on. So I'm going to go ahead and get my guest on here. And my guest is, here we go. There we go. Greg Fernandez Jr. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you, brother.
Oh, it's great to have you on here. I want to thank you for taking the time to come and speak with me. There's not. I've been doing a lot of research into this case, and definitely you are one of the people I've seen that have really delved deep into this David Crowley case, and been watching some of your videos, and well, actually watching all the videos of you, and find a lot of it interesting. And as I was saying before I went. When we were talking before this interview, it's a very hard case to try to stay in the middle and not try to lean to one side. I'm trying as somebody who's doing interviews. I don't want to kind of dig my heels in yet and basically say he was guilty or he wasn't guilty. I do want to hear both sides because I've always believed that if you got to have a discussion and you got to hear both sides, and usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. You try to think that's the way it's going to work out, and just the amount of work that you've done investigating is really, really, it's really impressive, actually. So I wanted to ask you to start off with, how did you even come across the David Crowley case?
That would be from my friend Dan. So my friend Dan, he called me up and he's like, we have been working on separate cases. Another case, Phil Marshall. He was a pilot. He wrote about September 11th and all of this stuff. And anyways, so he was accused of a double murder, suicide of killing his two kids and killing their dog and then killing himself. So we were working on that case. And then Dan brought it up and he's like, hey, you have to look at this case, this David Crowley case. And so I was reluctant to look at it because I didn't really take David Crowley seriously. I thought his work was basically fear porn. And I thought that the 2012 trailer was garbage. And so I was a little bit I wasn't a little bit hesitant. I was very hesitant to really dig my heels into the case. But I started looking at it. Dan created a group called Justice for David Crowley and Family. I joined that group. And so I started looking into this and kind of just hoping to see, okay, what do the cops say? Okay, if the police are already saying within 24 hours David Crowley is guilty, they must have something. They must have a smoking gun. They must have some reason why they would just all of a sudden so quickly say, hey, we have our guy. The public is not in any danger. Not saying that case closed, but pretty much saying case closed in, without actually saying it. And so we started looking into it and kind of looking at, okay, what, I try to stay away from the whole, oh, it's a government hit. It's, there's, look at what happened to this, all of this stuff, all these weird, crazy theories that kept coming up and kept shadowing the fact, wait a minute, let's just really break it down here. Let's really think about what proves him guilty. What do they have? And of course, at that point, they're not going to tell us, right? Because they're still building their whole case. They had notes. They had that was basically it. They had these notes because of what David Crowley was writing about. He must have gone crazy or something like that. They weren't really saying. All that they were saying was that David Crowley is guilty. The public is not in any danger. It got a little weirder because then you had some of the friends who have been working with David Crowley, and you have a lot of them saying David Crowley is guilty too. And it was like, okay, well, what do they know? What do all these people know that would prove David Crowley guilty? And so here we are 6-7 years later, and there really still is nothing there to prove him guilty. That's always been the real focus is to find out, okay, based on the evidence, not based on your feelings, whatever you want to think. If you want to think that he's guilty, fine, think that he's guilty. But looking at the evidence, looking at the facts, what really proves that David Crowley is guilty? Why would they just jump to this conclusion within 24 hours that it must be David Crowley? And I'm here to pretty much tell you, there really is nothing there. And the fact that they would do that within 24 hours is pretty shady. I mean, to really do that so quickly and to not even look at any other sides, to not even look at any other ways that and anything else that may prove maybe it wasn't. In this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. And that includes David Crowley. David Crowley is a soldier who fought for this country, and he definitely deserves better than what he was given. I know you've talked about different, two sides, different camps and stuff like that, but we talked about going down many rabbit holes, and there's so many different sides. There's so many different views. There's so many different people that think this or that and have so many different, okay, well, he's guilty. There's this whole pack theory where they think not only was it David, that it was David and his wife. But for me, man, it really just comes down to either you can prove him guilty or you can't. Those are really the only two camps that I see. So if you can't prove him guilty, then he's not guilty. And so, yeah, I mean, and that's where I started. My bias started trying to prove him guilty. That was my bias. And I don't think that now looking back, I don't think that was the right way to approach this case because it made it a little harder for me to actually get to the point where I'm like, okay, he's not guilty. It took me a little bit longer because of that. But yeah, so that's where I got started, just getting involved with Dan's group. And we started getting documents. Then we started getting contacted by David's quote unquote friends. We started getting threats. All these weird games, all this weird stuff was happening. We're like, wait a minute, if this is such an open and shut case, why is there all this drama? Why are there so many people that really just want to trick you into thinking David Crowley is guilty? They don't want to give you the proof. They don't want to say, hey, man, look, here is what proves David Crowley guilty, because the police can't even do that. If the police can't do that, nobody else is going to be able to do that either, unless they're hiding something that the police don't have, which is not true. And so that's where I started. That's kind of where I'm still at now. And that's why I wrote my book, to kind of just go over and say, look, these are what the documents say, right? We can go about feelings. You can say, man, I think, David Crowley is guilty. David's own dad thinks that there was a pact between David and his wife to kill their
Right.
daughter. Okay, so that means that's not a double murder suicide at that point. That's a double suicide and a murder.
Mm-hmm.
So even within the people that think David is guilty, there's still different factions of, well, not only is David guilty, but Kamel is too.
Right.
And so it gets so weird. I'm just like, dude, let's just really talk about what proves him guilty. And if you can't do that, I mean, then I don't really know why you're even trying to convince me that David Crowley is guilty. Show me some evidence. Show me some facts. And I
Right.
just don't see it.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, and I totally agree with you that when you think there's so many different theories out there, that's the one thing that I'm very surprised at. And I have recently just come upon in the last few days upon this pact theory. Like that
Mhm.
him and Camilla had a pact, and to me that is just that's I it's very, if it is true, it's very disturbing for one thing to me. That an
But
innocent
but
girl.
but that Yeah, but that goes against what the cops say too.
Right.
So then
Right.
at that point, the people who believe there is a pact are actually on the same side as us, saying, well, the what the police say is not true.
Right. And
So it's like they want to have it both ways
right,
sometimes.
and that's what I'm saying, and we have to look at the evidence. Now, when you started investigating this, what was some of the evidence that really made you, when you looked at the evidence and really had a good close look at it? Because I know that I'm going to hear it in the comments from the other side. I already know what's coming. That well, I do, and I mean that's fine. Like I said in my intro, I want to hear both sides as long as it's done in a respectful manner and
Sure.
it's based on evidence. And I'm totally for, like I said, I'm riding this in the middle. I'm trying my best, and I do want to hear both sides. So I know they're going to come at me and say there's tons of evidence out there that he did it, but the more I look at it, the evidence is not so cut and dry. There's a lot of questions, and it could be down to bad police work. I'm totally for that. There could be something going on with the police work. They did a rush job, and he did this. It wouldn't shock me either if that was the case. And it wouldn't shock me if he did do it, and if he didn't do it, I'm like I said, I see both sides of their argument. I really do, but
Sure.
it comes down to the evidence. And what was the evidence that you looked at? Like, what are a few of the parts that to you are just they have not explained, or that made you say that there's no way that he could have done this?
Sure. And I think that's a great question. It's a question that we all need to really ask. And it's a question that really comes down to it. Obviously, the first one is, okay, if they can't prove him guilty, then what the hell are we even talking about here? Why are we even acting like he is guilty? So it all starts with, okay, what do they have that proves him guilty? Okay, but you're asking the right question, because okay, the answer to what I just said, to my question, is there is no evidence. So then we have to go with, okay, well, what proves that David Crowley didn't do it? Well, they don't have his blood on any of those bullets. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have any proof that David wrote that blood writing on the actual wall. They don't have any proof that David wrote the note in the office bedroom. They can't put his fingerprints on anything there. The only print that they can put is on the paper in the office bedroom. They can put his left middle finger
Mm-hmm.
on the piece of paper. They cannot put his hand in that gun. So they can't match the gun to his hand. That's a big deal right
It's a
there,
very big deal.
obviously. But the whole DNA thing, if you look at the DNA results, you'll see that there's another DNA profile on two areas. And so whose DNA is this? They have DNA that belongs to someone else, showing that somebody else was in that house. The police make it very, very clear to say, hey, we didn't find any signs of a struggle, but the back door is open.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't need why are you even looking for signs of a struggle? You're telling me there's a knife on the living room floor. That's not a sign of a struggle. The knife is open. There is an unspent round on the living room floor. That's not a sign of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But the fact that they can't even put the gun in David's hand, I think, is a big deal. The fact that they can't tie any bullets to David there, I think is a huge deal right
Mm-hmm.
there. So that, I mean, beyond that, there's a lot of other things, right? How do they know that David wrote anything on the laptop in that kitchen? They
Right.
can't put his DNA there. They can't put his fingerprints there. It could have been anybody.
Right.
All they have is everything is in Kamel's blood. So they have her blood at this whole scene, which to me pretty much discounts any pack theory, because I don't believe she's going to say, hey, let's use my blood to do all this stuff and put it over here and put it
Right.
on this wall and everything. I mean, it's possible. But again, we're not talking about, just what is possible. Almost anything is possible, but what can be proven.
Mm-hmm.
So based on all of these things, the phone records, his electronic records, the police say, going through all of this data on page 82, one of the last pages of their police reports, they say we did not find any motive, no
Mm-hmm.
financial motive, no motive for nothing, no reason why David would do this. I mean, those are big deals that usually, the people who think David Crowley is guilty, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the actual documents. They don't want to talk about what the actual DNA results show.
Right.
They don't want to talk about the fact we have hands that are missing. His hand is missing. Most of his head is missing. His wife's hands, both of her hands are gone.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter's arm is completely gone. There's a fractured rib there. There's 3 bullets that are tied to David's wife, yet we were told she was only shot twice, with most of her head missing. Maybe they need to leave the door open to a 3rd shot.
Right.
But the fact that they can't put David's blood is not on any of those bullets is a big deal. And the fact that they left the house on January 17th, January 18th, and missed 2 very important bullets. They
Right.
missed a bullet that will be tied to Rania later on,
Yes.
and they missed a bullet that is tied to David just by DNA, not by blood, but by his DNA is on the bullet that they find 1 month later.
Right.
So
And
those are
that's
kind
a
of those are the big things.
yeah, that's a big deal. Like I find that really strange that that's one of the ones one of the many things I find very strange is the bullet that they find a month later, and a lot of people say, well, they missed it, or the tree was in the way, or something like that. But I mean, I'm quite sure, like the amount of people that were in that room, in that house, and I saw the picture of the bullet somewhere. I think it might have been even on one of your pages. I saw the actual picture, and that's a noticeable hole. I thought maybe it was like a little hole in the ceiling that you would barely see, and you really had to get up. But from that picture, from what I can see, I could be totally wrong, but it looks very obvious. Like I mean, if anyone would have looked up, they would have saw that in the ceiling, and I find that very alarming that they would find it a month later and there's no and then from what I understand there's none of his like if he did shoot himself there should
Mhm.
I know what bullets can do. I have firearms, so I know what a bullet does when you go hunting and stuff. And if you happen to get a bullet that's killed an animal or something, you're gonna see pieces of tissue in the bullet. You're gonna see hair. There's all kinds of stuff matted in that little piece of fragment that when it goes through the whatever it goes through, that's a body or an animal or whatever. There's gonna be something that's embedded in that bullet. And as you just said, if I'm correct, there was nothing like that found on that bullet. Correct?
Correct.
That's a big deal to me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an investigator, but to me, that's a big deal. Uh, and another thing that I find strange too is like there's definitely a lot of Kamel's blood, but is am I right to assume that there's not a lot of David's blood on the scene, or am I mistaken on that?
No, that is correct. I think if I remember correctly, they found David's blood on the magazine, but not on the actual gun, which is also kind of strange. But yeah, there's very little of David's blood found at that crime scene. Period.
And for that amount of
Now,
damage, there should be a lot more blood, I would assume.
there definitely should be. There is a recliner in the living room that has a huge blood spot in
Right.
it. It's
Yes.
item number 34, and they never test it. They never tested this because that shows where we see the bodies, where the bodies were found. It shows somebody's body was actually moved
Hmm.
because there's no way a huge blood stain like that is getting there. Where if these three bodies are actually, if they died where the bodies were found, there's no way.
Right.
So somebody's moving those bodies,
Right.
definitely. At least one of them.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that too, and I could definitely see that. I have my own theories on what kind of
Sure.
why they would do that, but that's just my theories. It really means nothing. But another thing I wanted to ask is a lot of the people say that all of the damage done to all the bodies was done by the dog Paleo, I think his name is. Paleo, am I correct? Right.
Yes. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the dog doing this? Now, I'm only asking because I have friends with dogs, and I actually, since
Hmm.
I started looking into this case, I've asked them. Like, I've actually went up and asked them and said, like, what do you like? And they have some of my friends have big dogs. They have a black lab. Another friend has a Rottweiler, and I'm like, can they do that type of like? What do you think would they could do that type of damage? And a lot of them said they don't think that they would do that amount of damage, and especially he's not a big dog from what I can tell in the documentary and that in some pictures. He's a good sized dog, but he's not huge. And what are your
Correct.
thoughts on them blaming all like they're blaming a lot on this dog? And so it's
Hmm.
kind of a two-part question.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on them blaming the dog for all of this damage? And what are your thoughts on why they would not test the feces? Because to me, that would have proved the argument for the police right off the hop. They test the feces. There's tons of bone fragments in it. Case closed to me. Like, okay, the dog ate the
Done.
bones, but they didn't
That's
test
right.
it. They didn't test it. I don't understand. That's one of the first things I would have tested if I was an investigator. So, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on the dog being the apparently the culprit for all this damage?
Yeah, I pretty much did the same thing because I don't have dogs. So I went and I asked every person that I knew that had a dog, big
Mm-hmm.
dogs that do eat, animal bones and that do eat things like
Exactly.
that. And it seems like they're like, yeah, no, I'm not. There's just no way. I mean, they say, okay, maybe one, maybe part of the skull, flesh, obviously, but
Right.
we're talking about, eyes, tongues, throats, the larynx, hands,
Teeth.
four
Teeth.
hand, yeah. I mean, so much damage. But I mean, I'm still open to it. I'm still open to David Crowley being guilty too. I still want to say that too. I haven't closed the door on saying, oh no, there's no way. I just say that there's no evidence. I mean,
Right.
if there's evidence, yeah, I'm definitely open to it. But usually, just it's just a bunch of spinning and spinning. But if there's evidence, we all need to be open to David being guilty. And I think a lot of people in our group are. They're just like, well, where the hell is it?
Right. Well,
But
that's
as
yeah, and I have to say the people I've spoke to a few people in the group since I started covering this, and everyone I've asked are very very much open to him being guilty. Like if their evidence is there, they have no problem saying that he did it. Like
Sure.
it's not, and they're not even. What I find really cool is that they're not even really worried about like they're not trying to prove who did it. Like that's not their thing of saying pointing fingers and going, "You did it. We know you did it." That's not what they're
Right,
after. They just want
right.
the proof that David actually did it. And to me, like as we keep saying, the proof is everything. And from what I'm seeing, and I could be totally like I said, I'm not a crime scene investigator. I'm just somebody who's very interested in this case, and I have been for quite a while. But it's so much to digest, and when you start diving into it, because I kind of went into it like you did. I was like, well, I found Catherine's videos, and I just wanted to start looking. She was showing, arguments for not, for going against what they said, and I found it extremely interesting. And
Hmm.
that's where I got my start, and it's kind of like I find it a big deal that there's just like you think David's prints would be if he if he murdered two people before himself, you think he would have blood on him, or he would have their blood on him, or there'd be blood everywhere. There would be blood on the gun. There would be blood on everything. And from the pictures I can see, and I mean pictures don't really, it's hard to tell from a picture.
Sure.
And I find a lot of the pictures very poor quality, to be honest. I mean, that's my opinion. I'm not a photographer, but I mean, I see a lot of the pictures and I'm just like, what are they shooting? Like they're pointing at a couch. There's nothing there.
Right.
There's half a body. There's like a half a piece of the body over here and there's just a blank rug over here. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what they're shooting, but I mean, whatever. I'm not a photographer in that area, so. But I just, would you think there would be more, uh, like of his blood and stuff? And what do you think about that? Like you totally agree, right? There should be his blood at least on the gun, on the magazine, or on something,
It should be on a bullet. Yeah, it should be on the gun
right?
next to the barrel, at the barrel of the gun, and it should be on at least one of those bullets.
Right, right,
If it's not, that's a huge deal to say, wait a minute, okay, so what proves that the bullet that they found, that's the one that killed David? And if you really look at it, you can see that they really have a hard time tying that particular bullet that they find 1 month later. They have a hard time tying that to the gun that is found at that crime scene.
right,
What they do is they actually compare a bullet fragment that is found. They compare that to the bullet that is found one month later.
right,
So
right,
but why not compare it to the other bullets that were found on the day that the bodies were found? It's just really odd the way that they have to run and do these little dances to try to prove that bullet fired from that particular gun. And so obviously for people who want to believe David Crowley is guilty, they're going to. And then I
right,
think for everybody else, it's kind of like, man, I don't know. You got to, there must be more to it. And like, there has to be more that would
right.
prove that bullet is fired, from that gun, that's the one that killed David. Like, if that's all that you have, I don't know. I have a hard time just, putting my stamp down saying, okay, well, that's it. Then this must have came from David, which is where I started, and then it's the more that I researched it, when these documents finally came out that we didn't get until years later, then it was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, if they're not saying, item one, the gun is item one fired item 57, which is the bullet found one month later. What they're saying is that a fragment labeled item 31 matches item 57. Item 31 must have come from item one, so that means that item 57 came from item one too. Boom, case closed. I mean,
Right,
it's like,
right,
wait a minute.
right. And just
Wait a
so my,
minute.
like, for my viewers like that maybe have not followed this case, how many bullets were totally fired in that room? Like, how many are police saying were fired?
Yeah, so I always get this wrong. I believe it's 6 or 7 bullets that were fired. We know that there was one bullet that was fired into the basement, or
Right,
fired into the living room floor, went into the basement. There's no DNA on that one, so that one didn't hit anybody. That's item 45. Item 45 looks very similar to the one that is fired into the ceiling. For whatever reason, it does have David's DNA on it, but not blood. So, and then you have one unspent round. So I believe that may be 8 rounds that they found total there. Then in the gun, there's 3 other rounds.
wow,
So there's probably a total of, the gun was fully loaded. Maybe no, not fully loaded. If it has 12, it probably had 11
mm-hmm.
in there. So, but only 7 were fired. One may have misfired the bullet that the unspent round that was found,
Yep,
which is weird too. That shows that somebody actually reloaded at
right,
some point too. The bullet got cocked or the bullet got stuck or something, and so they had to take it out of the chamber but left it in there. And to me, like, that's more signs of a struggle, to a bullet being fired into the basement, a bullet being fired into the ceiling. Those look like signs of struggle. Yeah, I would think
exactly,
that they were.
right.
A knife open next to Kamel's body.
That's another part that I found very strange. And from what I understand, they're all three of their DNA, like their blood, was found on that blade. Am I correct on that? All three of their DNA was found on that blade.
Yeah, I'd have to go back to my book I should have had my book open actually to kind of verify that one,
I'm
because
quite
that is
sure.
a
Yeah, I'm quite
yeah.
sure. I remember Catherine saying that there was definitely some DNA found on the knife, but it wasn't visible.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't like there was blood dripping off the knife or anything like that. Which I find very strange that nobody's really thinking anything of this knife laying there for no reason. If it was a murder-suicide, why would that knife even be there to begin with? I'm just wondering.
Right.
Why would it be open? If so, he had a knife in his pocket. Somebody's told me that. They're like, well, maybe he had the knife in his pocket. Well, definitely a break knife. I can tell by the look of it, unless I'm mistaken. But it does look like a break knife that you got to kind of fold, and like it folds up, and it just doesn't. I could be wrong on
Yeah.
that. I mean, I could be wrong, so I'm open to that. If you guys want to light me up if I'm wrong, that's fine. But to me, it looks like a knife that folds up. Why would it be
Yes.
open? Why would it be open?
Correct.
A lot of strange things in this case, Greg. I'm just
Well, here's the thing about the knife is okay. The knife was closest to David's left leg, next to the couch.
yep.
The blood on the knife came from a mixture of two or more people, according to to their their DNA.
Right.
Now they're not specific, but they say that David Kamel and Rania cannot be excluded from it, but 99% of the general population could be. So, yeah, so it's highly possible that it was all of their blood, but again, they're not really sure. They found blood. Blood was swabbed on the inside hole of the blade. There was a swab of blood found on the folding side of the blade. So you're right, it is
Yep.
a folding knife. The blood is not present on the handle of the knife. And then there is also hair that was found on the actual handle there too. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's a little odd with
Yeah,
that knife.
I
Yeah.
just find that strange. I always go back to thinking about that knife, and I'm like, why
Mhm.
would that be there? Like, if you were gonna, if it was a murder suicide or whatever why would that knife even be there? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why it would just be laying beside him? It's it's just one of those questions, and I have so many questions. Like even
Sure.
when we talk about the door, I remember. Well, let's kind of go back. I was mentioning that I heard that you did the interview with Judy. Now, I'm still learning all the names. Please forgive me. Is Judy the neighbor? That
Yes, Judy lived right next door. Before we get that, I just want to say one
yes.
more
Go
thing
right
about
ahead. Yep.
the dog, just to kind of finalize on
Yes.
that on the dog because um, the dog you're right. There was no they didn't test the dog feces, which would
Right.
have definitely proved it. So why are they just guessing that the dog ate anything in that house? First of all,
Mm-hmm.
they do find that there is scavenging. The animal scavenging is in the actual autopsies, so
Okay.
there is proof of that of scavenging. If you look at some of the most recent photos that we got that show some of the tattoos
Mm-hmm.
of David and his wife, you can kind of see some scarring on there. So that could have came from this actual dog, but because they didn't do those tests, that they can never say, they can never prove. And it's once again the same way they don't really try to prove that David Crowley did it. They don't try to prove that the dog did this either.
Right.
The last thing I want to say about the dog is that a couple of days after this, that the dog is pooping out like Barbie parts,
Oh,
Barbie toy parts. The
okay.
dog is pooping out things, but it's not pooping out anything that would lead you to think that it came from humans. But
Wow.
so it was eating like toys. It was eating stuff, but it was not eating. That's all that I know. I can't say for sure that it was or that it wasn't eating human parts. It may have well have been, but
Right.
there were Barbie toy parts and things like that were coming out of it days
See,
after.
I didn't know that. That's really strange to me. That I didn't know that. That's the first I've heard of this. So wow. Um, yeah. See, I have a friend that's a vet, and I actually have a meeting set up with them. I wanted to actually go and talk to them.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and I'm good friends with this person, so I want to go and speak to them about this. I'm not going to tell them the case or anything like that. I'm just going to ask them what if an animal that is likely, to start eating its owner, how likely that is. Would they go for the hard skull and bones, or would they? To me, I would think that the animal would go to the softest tissue and the most accessible tissue, and that's
Mhm.
what I would think if I was. But I don't know, so I want to ask the vet that.
Sure.
And so yeah, I find that a lot is blamed on the dog.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of find that they didn't test the feces is another big thing to me. I mean, I could assume that they're thinking like the dog did this, he ate it, so we don't have to test it. But I would think as an investigator, just to rule that out, that you would test it.
I
And
mean, they have it all there. They
exactly,
have it all there. Is it that difficult? Now maybe they don't have the technology. They don't have any way to test it. That would make
right.
sense, but they don't tell us that. So when you talk to your vet friend, maybe ask them that. Ask them about what does bones do to the intestines of the dog. If a dog is to eat that, what does it do to
Right.
the dog? Because there's no damage to that dog. That dog
Right.
is pretty healthy
And I
afterwards.
also want to bring up to the vet too that it's not like he ate like a little bit of a bone. Like if he did eat
Right.
these, there's a lot of bone he ate. Like he ate an arm, he ate hands, he ate the
Yeah.
skull. Like I mean, there's not like it's not like he had a little piece of bone. Is that going to do damage over the course of these supposed 3 weeks that they're saying this happened? He ate a lot of
Hmm.
bone. And another thing that I find weird is it not true that there was bags of dog food that were actually on like they weren't open
Yes.
bags, but there were bags that I know my cats can get into a bag of cat food if they really want to. They will claw into it and get into it. So I'm assuming that if there was dog food there, that he would have went to the dog food first, tried to get into it. I would think.
Yeah, there
And
were there were there were two bags there.
right,
One was about halfway opened, but it was rolled up,
right.
and then the other one was just there, and they're both in that kitchen, not too far from where those bodies
Right.
were found too.
And yeah, I'm just wondering, like, I'm really wondering if the dog would not go to that as the bodies would be a last resort thing, I would think. But now that you're telling me that he was pooping out baby, like Barbie doll pieces and toys, that's really puzzling to me too. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and then
It's
I,
that's almost like, well, he was trying to eat something, but he didn't want to eat the others.
exactly. And what about
Yeah.
water? Like, I know that they're saying that there was a toilet that was open, but do you think there would
Two,
be
yes.
two toilets open?
Two.
Is there enough water, do you think, for a dog for 3 weeks to drink out of? I don't know if there's be enough water in a toilet for 3 weeks of a dog drinking out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's always been a big question that I still ask myself now,
Right.
and those are one of the things that I ask people all the time. When you look at those toilets, if a dog has done this much damage to those bodies, it should have paws on it. It should have blood on its mouth, should have blood on
Exactly.
its paws everywhere. And if it's going into that toilet, you would think some of that would be there. Look at those toilets closely. They look like they've been wiped too,
Right.
especially on the actual lid. They look like they've been wiped, which is weird. Now, obviously, it wouldn't take much for somebody to take the dog food from the dog, take the
Mm,
dog take the water from them, and so that they would kind of force the dog to feast on these bodies. But from
mm,
what I heard about this dog would never do that.
right.
That's what I've heard.
Right. No, I can see that, and as I say, I'm open to the possibility he could have done it. I mean, by all means.
Sure.
I mean, I kind of have a little bit of problem with Kamel's hand that was underneath her body. I don't know how the dog would get to that.
Good point. I'm glad you brought that
Yeah,
up.
like I
Yeah.
mean, I found like it's just these are just things I keep hearing, and you have to explain them away to me. And if you're gonna blame
Right.
the dog for all of this damage, then you have to explain away the hand that was eaten that was underneath her body. Now, either the dog did
Yeah.
it, and that means the body was moved, possible, or the dog didn't do it because he couldn't have got to that part of her. He couldn't reach her hand,
Right.
and
And
I
then and then why just one of David's hands? The other hand, if you look at the left hand
yes,
of David, it's there. Why didn't the dog go after both of David's hands if it's going to go after one?
right,
That doesn't make sense to me either.
yeah, like, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of it doesn't make sense. That his hand was his right
It's
hand
true.
is missing. He's
Yeah.
right-handed. The gun's found on his left side.
Right.
And I know that guns are quite heavy. Even a pistol is it's a heavy gun.
Hmm.
I can't see it could. I'm not saying it couldn't, but I'm saying I find it very hard to believe that it would if he shot himself that it would land like I don't know. It's so confusing. I don't understand how it
I
would land
know.
on his left hand side because we do know
Yeah.
that the shot from what the autopsy says he was shot in the right hand side from what
Right.
they can tell, and then that the exit was on his left hand side from what if I'm remembering right. So obviously he had his hand attached when he apparently shot himself, and I don't know how the gun would end up on his left side. I mean, it's possible it bounced or the dog. I'm very open to also a lot of people I don't see mentioning is that if the dog was there for 3 weeks,
True. Yeah.
he would be doing a lot. He could be moving stuff around. Like I know I see my friends' dogs, and they'll grab something and they'll carry it and put it somewhere else. They'll move stuff around, and so I'm totally open to the possibility that a lot of the scene would be contaminated by the dog like if it did happen the way they say it did, the dog for three
Absolutely.
weeks. Yeah, and I don't see a lot of
Absolutely.
people talking about that. That
No,
the
I think
dog.
that is a great point. Yeah,
Right.
that is a great point because if you look at, it's possible, and I think about this often too about the daughter. I think about the recliner where that big blood hole
Yes.
is, the big blood patch is, and
Mm-hmm.
I think about maybe the dog trying to move Rania closer to Ranya's mom,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why we find Ranya on top of Kamel's left leg. It's just a theory. I don't have anything to back it
Mm-hmm.
up, but it's something that I do think about often.
No, and I can see that too. And then even I was looking at a video that Catherine did was showing. It was a recent video of David's clothes and how bloody they were. Like there was a lot of blood on David's clothes. I was actually quite surprised if in her video when they showed she was showing the photos of how much blood was actually soaked through. I think two of David's shirts, through his boxer shorts. Like there was a lot of blood that was on those clothes, and she was mentioning that there was a kind of a part that was torn on the front of his shirt, and it looked kind of like, to me it looked like something a dog would do. Like if a
Hmm.
dog is kind of scratching at their, I know that my friend's dog will scratch at him if he wants attention in that, and I can only assume that if they were lying there and the dog was there that long with them, that he would be trying to wake them up and stuff, so he was digging at their clothes. Makes sense
Right.
to, so I kind of can explain away that tear in the clothes, but I do have a hard time trying to figure out where all that, like, so much blood on his, like, he's got the most blood on his clothes from everyone else, and I just find there's a lot of blood right down the front of his shirt, and I don't know if a gunshot wound would necessarily have that much blood down the front of his shirt. Like, what do you
Right.
do you know the video I'm talking about that Catherine did?
Yeah.
What do you think of those?
Yeah.
What do you think of those pictures?
I think if he's running around, putting his wife's blood on the wall, and he's, the blood everywhere that they find is Kamel's blood there.
Mm-hmm.
So if he has her blood, then of course he should have the most blood because he's walking around going in this room, going in that room with bloody hands, with blood here, which is all Kamel's blood.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me does make sense. But again, it's like, okay, it's a theory. It's theorizing, but I mean, it's like I just expected to see more. I expected to see more of, okay, how do they know that David wrote the blood on the wall and that somebody else didn't? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, how easy could it be for anybody to have done that, except
Ex-
for Kamel?
mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
but if it's aside from her, it could have been anybody. But so I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of as far as that,
Right. And now,
as far as why so much blood.
what I wanted to ask you was, if he was the one writing he was taking Kamala's blood and writing it on the wall, I would assume that there, and I haven't found out, maybe you can answer this, was there not, there would be a trail of blood, I would assume, right? From Kamel's body to the spot on the wall where he was writing. From the
You would think
not,
so.
is there no blood trail? There's no,
Not that I'm seeing.
wow.
No, I mean, where did the blood come from? If most of her body is intact, it had to have come either from her hands, from her head,
Mm-hmm.
or from the blood when her hands and her head were severed or something like that. I really don't know, but
Right.
that is a lot of blood to just on that wall, not including the blood that is found in other places too. And if it's all hers, that is a lot of blood there. So where the hell did it come from?
Exactly, and I would assume, like, I actually thought you were going to say that there was a trail of blood going from Camilla to the wall and stuff like because you'd have to go
I
back
mean,
and forth to do this. It wasn't
yeah,
like you would just wet your hand once and do all. That's a lot of blood on the wall. You'd be going
right,
back and
right.
forth.
Yeah, there's no trail mentioned in the police documents. There's no visible trail, but like you said, the images, man, it's hard to see. I give the police the benefit of the doubt as far as blood
Hmm.
because of how bad their cameras are, and because of the way that carpet is and the color that the carpet is, and
Right.
how blood could easily just kind of mix into that carpet. So, yeah, I've never really spent too much time focusing on where the hell is all of this blood. I mean, it does seem like there should be a lot more blood. I'm not
Right.
saying that there shouldn't be. There definitely should be, but yeah, I mean, there definitely should be a lot more blood on that wall. Dan Hinnon did a great video on that, and kind of actually took a couch and kind of, went over that. And it was like, wow, to kind of see it in a visual way is very different to just say, okay, well, they just took Kamel's blood, and they just did it. Like, think about how much blood they would have had to have taken, how much time they would have had to have spent, and then why write Allahu Akbar?
Hmm.
I mean, none of it makes sense.
Right.
It's just, it's really odd. And then to just in 24 hours say that David Crowley did it, and then to hide it from the public and to hide it from the family too, is also odd. It's also very, very strange.
Right. And that's what I totally agree. It's strange, and I find, like, what I find is that the more that I look into it, it's like I keep hearing people say that David was losing grip, that he was in a dark place, he was isolating from people. But from what I've seen and I've read so far, the journals, it doesn't. I don't see. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing it. I may, and I'm totally open to that possibility that I'm not seeing it. I don't see a man wrestling in darkness. I see him struggling with friendships. I see him struggling with, at times, being a father. I remember reading something like that where he was kind of like trying to find his place as a dad. He was kind of unsure. But as the journal goes on, you see him coming more to grips with that. And I just
Right.
don't see this deranged person. Not saying that it couldn't happen. I'm not saying that at all. I'm totally open to the possibility that he did finally snap. I just don't see anything in the journals. And that's why I wanted to bring up the interview that you did with Kamel's friend.
Hmm.
I just listened to it actually before I got on here with you. And she's saying that actually that Kamel was very distressed. She like when they were together, she could tell that Kamel was very distressed, and she was kind of scared of David. She said that when she would like kind of answer a question, she would look over to David to make sure David was going to kind of give the nod of approval to answer it. What did you think of that interview? Like, do you in all of the research have you done? Have you found anything that would lead you to believe that he was that type of guy, like a dominating husband, somebody that was like not letting her do anything? Because her friend also says in the same interview that Camille is a very strong woman, a very independent woman. So I mean, you can't be both. You can't be timid and you can't be strong, in my opinion. Kind of, it's kind of going to clash. I mean, I'm sure it could happen, but what do you think? Is there anything that you found in all of your research that would show David to be like that type of guy, like a very possessive man, or anything like that?
I mean, just someone that really loved his wife and was very protective
Mm-hmm.
of his wife, definitely. But I mean, it's a slippery slope because I grew up in that type of a home, so I've seen it. I've seen what it's like to have a dominating stepfather and abusive stepfather,
Okay.
physically and actually mentally too. So I those are some of the signs that I would look for. Now we know everybody's different. Just because I saw it in my childhood doesn't mean that, just because I don't see it in David doesn't mean that it's not there. Like you said, it could be there. It is just a huge accusation to say something like that, and it has to be taken seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has to be taken seriously. Like, man, that's something that anybody could say about us. They could say that about us, and it,
Yep.
it backs you into a corner. And David is not here to defend himself. All that we have are his journals, are his writings, are all of that. So yeah, so when I look at that, it's like, wow, this is totally different than what we've been hearing from Kamel's sister, from Kamel's sister's friend. David was very controlling. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't let her do anything, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm still kind of 50-50 on it. I do see some signs in there, in those journals where, I wouldn't say that he is controlling, or I wouldn't say that he's controlling or possessive. I would say that he is definitely, he definitely puts her first and is looking out for her. The fact that she looks over to him in front of her friends, is nothing different than I've seen my own wife do that as she's answering. And
Right.
I tell her, why are you looking at me when they asked you the question? Why are you
Yep.
looking at me? You can answer this yourself.
Yep.
But it shows how close that they were. Not that David was kind of running her whole life. She was his biggest fan, and she didn't have to be that. She was always there. She was right there for him. So no, I didn't. I mean, I look at that and I don't want to say no or say 100% no or yes, because I really don't know. I know God knows. I know they know. But I just don't see it personally. No.
Right, and from what I could tell from the journals that I've read, he was very open in his journals, from what I could tell, and I
Yeah.
think that if he there would be something there to kind of lead us in that direction where, and I do agree with you that I could tell he was very protective over his wife, and I could tell
Hmm.
that over his daughter, and I saw a video on YouTube where they were kind of at like a fair or something like that. You might know the
Hmm.
video I'm talking about, and a couple people that were
Absolutely.
interviewing him kind of cornered him and started asking him questions, and they actually wanted to go over and meet his wife and his daughter, and you could see the uncomfortableness in David where he was like, no, we're not going to go do that, like we're not going to go
Yep.
and bring my wife and kid into this, like he would. So you could see he was a protective person, but that's a far cry from saying that he was abusive. And I totally agree with you, we don't know 100%. We weren't there, we weren't friends with them, we weren't around them all the time, so I mean, I have to kind of give some credibility to friends of Kamel's in that they obviously
Sure.
knew her a lot better than we did, and maybe he was somewhat possessive, but that and maybe protective or maybe overprotective. Um, I could totally see that. Like you gotta admit, he was going there in the research he was doing. It was it's dark research. I know because I've looked into it, and I do look into it, and you have to definitely pull away once in a while because it really can get you in a dark mindset. And I totally admit that when you're talking about FEMA camps, you're talking about the elites. You're talking about all of that. You're going, and police, the police taking over and martial law. You're starting to go into some pretty dark territory, and you have to be ready for that. So I could definitely see him struggling with that. And I could see that being a point that he struggles with, especially doing
Yeah.
the movie he was doing. Like, what do you think about that? Like, you think that's
Yeah.
accurate?
That's funny because I was actually just thinking about that, and I was thinking David is a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So he's researching this stuff for a film. He's not a guy he's digging into this so he can take to the streets with a bullhorn. He's not a protester.
No.
That a protester doing something like that, I think would be a little more apt to go crazy. You're out there, nobody's listening, et cetera, et cetera. David is a filmmaker. He's researching this stuff for his film. So first and foremost, that's what I think is everything he's doing here is for his film, is for this film. It's not because he really even wants to wake people up.
Mm-hmm.
He's already realized you're not going to wake people up. People have to do that on their own. David is not out on the streets at these protests and stuff like that. He's not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
He's making films.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving speeches. He's not trying to have people follow him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he gets very frustrated with that, with a lot of people that are kind of following him. They're leaning on him. A lot
Yes.
of his gray state goon friends, they want his approval. They want to leech on him. They want to be part of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a filmmaker. He's making a film. He's a family man. He wants to keep all that separate. And
Mm-hmm.
I totally see that. I wouldn't want my family around a bunch of those weirdos either.
Right.
I mean, that's like you have to be like that. A good husband has to guard his wife, has to guard his family, period. And
Right.
that's what I see with David, regardless of who it's from.
Right.
According to the journals, David was not stopping Kamel from talking to her family. She was having lots of fights, lots of issues with their family. But
Mm-hmm.
according to what Kamel's dad was saying, that it was nothing big. People made a lot of things out of it to say, oh, well, David and Kamel's dad were, they didn't like each other, et cetera, et cetera. I know firsthand. Kamel's sister told me. She said, no, they were close. David and Kamel's family, they were all close.
Mm-hmm.
he may have been closer to that side of the family than with his own family.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like this was a very loving guy, and just uh, a very yeah, he was passionate
Mm-hmm.
about what he was doing. But man, to say that he is a domestic abuser, that he had PTSD, it's like we know real people that go through those struggles. To start accusing somebody of it because you want to desperately believe David Crowley is guilty, that is completely wrong.
Right.
Because then people, it really discounts the people who really have PTSD, the people who really are out there beating up women and choking women and doing things to women that they shouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
They want to put David in that same camp, and then say, well, he was making this movie, he was doing all this stuff, and then it puts all those people that want to do that in that same camp. It's just the stretches, the things like that we see. But I definitely think, talking to Kamel's friend, I think you're right. I mean, I don't doubt anything that she's saying, really.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there may have been one or two things that she may have gotten wrong, or I think she was wrong on. But for the most part, hey man, this is directly from the source. She was there, I wasn't there, so
Exactly.
this is what
That's the way I see
she's
it.
saying.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's another thing that you were saying. Like as you were saying, David Crowley was a filmmaker, and that he actually you're 100% right on that because I was watching the Gray State Extra on your channel where it shows an interview with David, and I think doing the
Danny
interview,
Mason.
Danny Mason doing the interview, and a few times in that interview you can hear David. You can watch the video yourself. I'm not making this up. He says, I'm not trying to change anybody's minds. I'm not trying to
Right.
lead anybody to a revolution. I'm just a filmmaker telling a story, and hopefully, it's something in this movie will touch you to make you go and research it yourself if you want to. He would. I don't think he had any type of agenda where he was trying to rally everybody together and start a revolution or anything like that. He was telling a story. That was what he kept saying in that interview was up front is that what the most important thing was to have the story, and it was actually a movie and it was a fictional movie. So I definitely think that a lot of people were using David as kind of like their the tip of the spear, if I can try, lack of better description. But I think a lot of the groups that are into that all of those topics kind of gravitated towards David, rightfully so in a lot of ways. I mean, he was.
Sure.
You look at his trailer, he hits on a lot of things that these people and I've even researched. So I mean, naturally they're going to kind of gravitate towards him. And I think somewhere in the middle of all of that, it kind of, in my interpretation, is that maybe the reason David was pulling back from a lot of these people was that it was getting into a too real of an area where he was trying, like you say, stay true to making the movie and stay away from getting too deep into all of these topics. That's the way I see it. I could be totally wrong. But I just think that maybe that's one of the reasons he was pulling away. I know there's a lot of reasons that people say he was pulling away, whether it was, they were leeching off him. He was going to get this big $30 million deal to make the series or something like that, and it was a money
Hmm.
driven that he was trying to get rid of them. But I can definitely see like him pulling away. I would think that maybe one of the reasons he was pulling away was just try to isolate, like not to be, just to kind of focus on the movie, the story of his movie, his script, and kind of stay away from those groups that were kind of in his ear all the time. Do you think there's some truth to that? What I'm thinking, or am I way off
Yeah.
base?
No, no, I totally see that. I can totally see that.
Okay, cool. I just thought
Yeah.
maybe I'm way off base. That's just the
No,
way
I
I.
don't think so.
It's just, yeah, it's just when I saw him do the extra interview on your channel, I just really realized that he was really stressing that at some points that it's just a movie, it's just a work of fiction. It's
Right.
not real life. Mind you, a lot of it what's
Right.
going on now is kind of scary to what he was kind of saying.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, it
kind
is.
yeah, like I kind of look at what's going on now, and I'm like, I don't know, man. David was into something. He was on to something. I don't know if he
He
just
must have knew something,
he
right?
knew
Yeah.
something, right? And that's the thing. Now, when you did the interview, I listened that you did with Judy,
Mhm.
her the neighbor. What did you take away from that interview? I think she commented on my last video with Catherine. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure of her YouTube name 100%. Is it Deep State Granny? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'm not
Okay.
sure. You're talking about Judy Prochnow,
Right. I'm
right?
not
Judy
sure if that's
Prochnow.
her or not. I'm not. I had a few comments from people, and I think somebody told me that she was one of the people commenting. I could be wrong. If I am, I
I don't.
apologize. But I'm just.
Yeah.
What did you take? I was very shocked
Yeah.
actually
So
when I saw that interview. I was like, oh my god, he actually
it's
interviewed her.
3 hours long. Yeah, it's 3 hours long.
Right.
Um,
What did you take away from doing that interview? What were your thoughts on her, and what was your like? What was what she was saying?
yeah. So I think the main thing is if you listen to the last couple minutes, the interview ended great.
Mm-hmm.
We ended on good
Yep.
terms. You know, she even says one of the last things she says is this wasn't that bad.
Yep.
And that's the way that those things should always go. Now, it was supposed to be a debate, but obviously, since she couldn't have provide any facts that proved David Crowley guilty, that was quickly done.
Yep.
I feel like I pretty much won that within a couple minutes. She couldn't prove David Crowley guilty. Okay. And then the rest of the talk was just us kind of talking, me asking her questions. I had a list of questions for her. She was open to answering those questions. And I thought it went really well. I really did. Um, and then all these weird things happened. Then she started posting my bankruptcy from 2013 or 2014, and I'm like, what the hell is this about? I thought we ended up on good terms. We could have even done a second one,
Right.
and then you go and you do this. I just thought that was really weird. There were a lot of things that I thought that she got wrong. There were a lot of things that I did put in my book too. So people, if you read my book, you'll find some of that in there. Um, Especially regarding her the 911 call is probably the strangest thing, because I don't know anyone who calls 911 and one of the first things that they say is, I think there has been a murder or a suicide.
Right.
Weird. Okay.
Right.
I want to just tell people, please don't ever do that. Just report what you see.
Right.
If you see something like that, please don't do what this lady did. It is not the right way, in my view. Just
Right.
report what you see. Then she goes on to talk about that the dog was eating these bodies. So by the time that the cops get there, obviously they have to take that into
Mm-hmm.
consideration. It's just, to me, that was just kind of weird and totally unnecessary. And so it's like, wow. So I always think about, well, the police jumped to the conclusion within 24 hours. Here you have this neighbor who jumps to the conclusion within 24 seconds.
Right. Right.
It's just odd. And I think some people, when I say that, I think some people take, oh, well, then you're saying that she's in. I'm not saying she's in on anything. I don't know anything about, and I don't go into who did. Oh, it had to been these people. I'm open to all of that, but I'm also open to the possibility that David Crowley did this.
Right.
But I mean, it's just when you look at it, obviously, hey man, if I could find some evidence David Crowley did, I would definitely, I would love to see that, and I would definitely
Right.
make sure that people have access to that. I would not hide it. Um, so those were some of the things that I took away from that. That I remember that 911 call was a big one. She really believed that there was a pack theory, which again goes against what the police are saying. So how do you say that the police did a great job, that the police theory is true, and then at the same time you say that there was a pack theory? The police say there wasn't a pack theory. They have confirmed there was no pack theory.
Right. Right.
But yet here you have this person who it just disregards that, but yet says that the police did a great job, and they got it right. Which one is it?
Right.
Did they miss that it was a pact, or did they get it right and it's a double murder suicide? So you
Right.
can't have it both ways. So I think
Right.
that was another big thing. I think the only other big thing that I had an issue with was about Chris Klein. So Chris Klein was a guy who came. Chris Klein is the only reason, by the way, that we know about the bullet that was found 1 month later.
Right.
He's the only reason.
Right.
Nobody saw it.
Yeah, and I
Nobody.
do remember in that interview, if I remember correctly, she was quite adamant, saying like you guys kind of went back and forth on that interview, saying she was saying that you were saying he was actually probably there alone. She was saying that I could have that reversed.
It was the
But
other way around.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was like he
Yeah.
wasn't there alone, and
Or
there was multiple
yeah.
cars there. You guys definitely didn't agree on that one, and you guys agreed to disagree on it.
Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, I'm just going by what the police documents say.
Right.
The police documents say that he was there on January 19th. Okay, it's clear that he says that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I talked to one of David's other friends, and he pretty much said the same thing, that he was there. You have 5 or 6 people that were all there in this house. The problem is, Klein says that he was in the house with David's father and David's brother. The police questioned David's father, and David's father is like, I was not in the house with them. So you have some issues there. It's like, when people are telling the truth, everybody's story will line up.
Right. Right.
It's as simple
It's
as
true. It's
as
true.
that.
And
Now
that,
Judy
yeah.
is she's just giving her view, and there's nothing wrong with that. If she thinks, she said that there were two cars there,
Right.
that Mason Hendricks's car was also there. When I talked to him, he was not happy that she mentioned that, by the
I
way.
don't blame him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, what, just called her crazy and stuff like that. But the police report, the actual 911 call on January 19th mentioned a suspicious person at the house. That's it. Now, speaking of that, we were able to speak with someone who, we were able to speak with a source, and the source said that Chris Klein's car, it wasn't like Chris Klein's car just kind of, pulled up and then got out, et cetera, et cetera. Chris Klein's car drove by slowly at least 2 or 3 times. That's why somebody called the cops, because it
Okay.
was, it was 2 days later. This was on January 19th. The bodies were found on January 17th. The police were gone by January 18th. The cleaners had not come to the house yet. The cleaners may have come that same day. January 19th is a big, big day,
It is.
by the way,
Yes.
just for so many reasons. But the main thing is because of Chris Klein being there, saying that he was there with all of these different people. Um, Hendricks is saying that he was there with him, that Hendricks, as soon as he walked into the house, he saw the bullet hole and said to Chris Kleiner, said to somebody else that the police couldn't see this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, Hendricks, how do you know that the police didn't see this? And if you know that the police didn't see this, why didn't you tell them that?
Right.
So it's just a lot of, these things. And this is why I wanted to talk with you. This is why I wanted to talk with some of these other guys. I think they got spooked after the 3 hour conversation I did with Judy, because they saw exactly where I was going to go, what I was going to do. I was not going to attack them. I was not going to go after them. I was going to catch them in any lies, and anything that they said will be used against them later on.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. And that's the thing. Like you were bringing up the 911 call that I found weird too. Is like as you said, she went right to that it was a murder suicide. And I mean, if she was just looking through a window, I have no idea how you would come to that. Because if I looked through a window and my neighbor's window and I saw that, that would not be. I'm just saying for me, and
Sure.
that could be where she went. But I'm just saying for me, I would not immediately think, oh my god, it's a murder suicide. I would be like, oh, but there's bodies in there. I got to call the police, and that's probably where it would end. I would call the police and let them do their job. Um,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. It only came out later that she had said that she hated David. And so, since she hated David, once I heard that, then I could understand why she would want to accuse David and want to believe that he was guilty, that he killed everybody.
Right.
But that's totally biased, and that is definitely not. If you're going to look for the truth, and if you're going to help other people find the truth, and you're not telling them that you hate David, that's where you're starting out, I mean, that's not right. That's not fair. I tell you exactly. I did not like David. I didn't know him. I didn't live next door to him, but I did not like him. I did not like his 2012 trailer. My view has completely changed. 7 years later, I do like the trailer. I do like a lot of things that David was doing. I have a lot of respect for all of our soldiers.
Right.
So that is just a whole. So that's my bias there. But that it was just kind of weird to hear that. It's like, wow, you already hate this guy. You're saying that there was a murder or a suicide, and I mean, it just gets odd. It just gets odder and
Right.
odder.
And that's
So
the
that's why I
thing.
just
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what I where my mind kind of went, and I'm not saying that this is what happened. Let me make this clear. I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm being honest and letting my
Hmm.
viewers know, and you know where my mind went when I heard her interview, and the amount of detail that she went into describing the hand and how little Ranya's hand looked and how the bodies
Right.
were, and like she went into quite a bit of detail if you listen to that 911 call, and if you also listen to your interview with her, like you know, you guys kind of talk about a lot that she saw, and I'm thinking that's a lot to see through a window. Not saying that you can't. I've never looked through the window. I can't. I have no idea. I can only go by what I see in pictures and that. So I don't know exactly what you would see in that window. It just seems like a lot to me to know like the discoloration of the hands and to go to it was a dog that did this and ate the bodies and stuff like that. Did the police ever? You may not know this, but this is where my brain went. Did the police, when they get there, is there any evidence or anything in the documents that the police check to see if anybody was walking like around that, like kind of follow me on this, but if the police were walking, did they walk around the house to see if there was footprints or anything leading up to the patio door? Because where my brain went was maybe somebody, before they called the police, they knocked on the front door, they look through the window, they see bodies or what they think are bodies. It may not be.
Yes,
It could have been. They said it could have been a mannequin. Is
that's
it
right.
that far of a
That was
stretch?
Colin.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what is it that far of a stretch to say that they would go to the back of the house and maybe see if the patio door is open, give the door a little bit of a nudge, open it up, walk in, and this is how they saw everything that they have so much knowledge of what they saw, and then kind of get the hell out of there when they saw what happened. Like that's where my brain went. I could be
Sure.
totally talking out my ass right now, and that's not what happened. I'm just saying, to be honest, that's where my brain went. Is that maybe somebody went in to check the patio door. The door was open a bit. There, the back door was open. They went inside to see what they could help or what was going on. They saw the condition of the house. They got out of there very quickly, not shutting the door totally, which kind of explains why the dog didn't open the door if he was there for 3 weeks to try to get out of there, to get out of the house. That's always bothered me that if the door is ajar a little bit, I know dogs can put their nose between a door and open it quite easily. I've seen my own
Hmm.
dog do it. So was there any evidence that there was feet print around the house, going around the house, like they were looking in the windows and all the house? Anything leading up to the patio? Is there any photos? I haven't seen any photos that I could even tell if there was anything like that. Do you know anything if I'm even close?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the police were doing that because obviously they don't when they get there they don't know if there's somebody in that house either.
Right.
So the police do walk around 360. So if
Okay.
there are any prints, it could be theirs, and so they could have trampled over somebody else's
Right.
prints,
Yeah.
and so they don't really know. They do find some animal tracks in the backyard.
I saw that
um,
picture. Right.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, even if somebody did, even if one of the neighbors or somebody around went in the back and kind of opened it up, that still shows that it was open still, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yes.
But according to the police documents, there's nothing in the police documents that says that anybody did that. It looks like they all look through the front window.
Okay.
Even the police were like, "Whoa, what the hell?" But they did have a cop, one or two cops that went 360 around the whole house,
Okay.
and so there were tons of prints
Okay.
there.
That's what I
There
kind
were
of
also
figured.
yeah, there were also prints that were leading away from David's house too. So that was kind of weird too. So there was some weird things with that, and I
Right.
think that's why police were taking photos. Some of the 464 photos that they took, some of the last ones are of their shoes, and that's to kind of show that, hey, these are our shoes. These are our
Right.
footprints here. And it's like, okay, they could have been anybody's. You could have trampled over, but because the actual neighbor, Colin, Judy's husband, because he came there first, so obviously his tracks are gonna be there
Correct.
in the front, but they don't really mention too much about finding somebody else's
Okay.
footprints or
It's just where
anything.
my mind went, and as I said, I want to make it very clear to people listening. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that's where
No,
my
it's
my
yeah.
brain kind of went to was because I would. saying that because I did have a friend once that I had to check on him every once in a while, and if I would go to his front door and it
Hmm.
wasn't open, he would always tell me to go to the back door. So I would go around to the patio door, and it was usually open, and I could go in and check on him. So I just thought maybe a neighbor would think to do that. That's just why my mind went there. That
Sure.
maybe they went in and that they saw what happened, they got out of there very quickly and made a 911 call. But as you said, there's no evidence of that. It was just I was just making a an observation that that's where my brain kind of went to, and it would kind of explain why they knew so much of what was going on inside with the bodies and that. It's a very weird, for me, that 911 calls is very strange to go to that right away. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
immediately right to that. So I can understand why people are a little wondering why she would say that. But in the heat of the moment, who knows? I mean, I've never walked in on a scene like that. I've never looked in the window, so I don't know. I could say the same
Yeah.
thing. Who knows? I'm
Sure. Yeah.
totally open to that.
I just hope people don't do that. That does not help the police,
Right,
period,
right,
at
right.
all.
Well,
Just
no,
report what you see.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to speak to you a little bit more about is now with not a lot of people are talking about what was going on with. He had a laptop with music playing in the background. Is that true that he had like a big song list playing on loop? And that's
There
kind
was
of
yeah, there was a song list playing on a loop. But what's weird is that it was connected to a Bluetooth speaker. So it's like you couldn't once that Bluetooth speaker died, then that's pretty much it. So obviously, if he's going to keep it on and he wants people to hear it, he's going to make sure that that Bluetooth speaker does not die. And so that's why I never paid too much attention to that playlist, because and what is really sickening is that if you look at the documentary that was made, they actually play that song at the very end. So there's a screenshot of one of the crime scene photos that shows a song that is just playing at that moment, just at the moment when that image, when the crime scene photo is snapped. And that is one of the song that is the song that is played at the very end of that film. But to me, it's not so relevant because why didn't he just keep it on? Why didn't he just keep that speaker on where people would hear it? It doesn't make too much sense to me.
right. Yeah, I've just brought that up because I just found it. A lot of people are saying that because it was the playlist was titled Ascension, that that's where they're kind of giving credence to like this was a pact or it was a that's why he named it that and stuff like that. So I just found it kind of interesting that, and a lot of people didn't really talk about it. I just happened to come across a video where people were talking about this playlist, and I love the way that you said in one of your videos that it doesn't matter who did this, whether it was David or uh, someone else or anything. It was definitely staged, no
Yeah.
matter who did it.
Right.
I think that's an amazing comment that you made because you're so accurate when you say that when you really break it down. Like somebody staged that. It was definitely a staged whoever did it. Whether it was
Absolutely.
and that's
Yeah, because who? I mean, they have everything out there. You have three notes in three separate places.
mhm,
You have this laptop that is open. You have a note that is there. Another open thing. You have his computer screen that is open right there. You have the bodies all nicely laid out on the actual living room. It's chaotic, but it really does look staged to me. The back door is open. Anybody could come in and just mess up that crime scene too. The dog, by leaving the dog in there, I'm glad that the dog did not die. But by doing that, it's you could stage it so that way, hey, you blame this dog for it. You have the paper open to a certain page and flip it open. It's not like David was just writing, like this page is purposely flipped open to say, submit to Allah now, open the Rise, the most recent version. So it's all mind play to say, hey, that's how you tie it to that David was working on the script. He must have went crazy, not realizing that so many people work on scripts every day.
mhm.
David had been working on the script for a long time, it doesn't make sense. The Rise is not his fictional film. The Rise is a companion piece. So it's, yeah. So to me, everything did kind of look staged. Just the way
Right.
that the laptop is just right there, open. As soon as police come in through the back door, it'd be the first thing that they would see.
Hmm.
And once they swab it, it turns on. I mean, everything is turned on right there. There's no passwords on. The password is on other things, but it's not on the laptop. It's not on his computer in the other room. I don't know, yeah.
Right. And it's definitely that's the a thing. It was definitely a staged event, and that's another thing that I just thought about thinking about the staged event with the
Mhm.
bit of marijuana that they had on the
That's another
counter.
one. Yep.
Right, and
Hmm.
I found that very funny in a way because I mean I do smoke marijuana myself, and I do have a grinder like the grinder that they show in the picture, and
Hmm.
I've never had my marijuana heaping over the top of the grinder like that, like in a pyramid. it I've never done that. I've never seen any of my friends do that. I've never seen anybody I know that smokes marijuana do that. Have a big pile in their grinder like that. I'm not saying that you couldn't. I'm sure there is some people in the world that do. I've just never seen it. And and I also noticed that to kind of tie in the marijuana and the drug use in the interview that you were doing with Kamel's friend. She was saying that Kamel is very upset that David was wanting to do certain drugs and that she had to lock him in a room once because he was doing drugs, and she was upset that he was wanting to do mushrooms and all of that. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
is there any proof that he was like doing a lot of drugs? Like, I mean, from what I can tell,
No.
maybe a bit of marijuana or something.
Yeah, I think the journal gives us a really good
Right.
view of that. So what Kamel's friend was talking about was something from Kamel's journal, which we've never been able to get, and she hasn't been able to give us that proof of what is said in Kamel's journal. Because the only thing that is said in David's journal is that he tried shrooms once. David only didn't start smoking until he was 28 and a half. He
Hmm.
died when he was 29. So he had been smoking not even a year, maybe, you know what I
Right.
mean? So, but it was weird that he compared shrooms the one time that he mentions it, that he compared shrooms to weed. I had never heard that comparison, so that made me think maybe they're very weak shrooms.
Yeah.
Because when I hear people talk about shrooms, I've heard my friends talk about the shrooms. Man, they throw up, and after they throw up, they are just ripped.
Well,
Things
yeah.
are talking to them and like weird, and that scared the crap out of me. I'm like, I'm never doing.
Right. I've done. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
done shrooms a couple times, and I would never compare them to marijuana. It is
That's weird,
totally.
right?
Oh, it's very strange. Like I had a friend I was talking to him about it, and I'm like, "You've done shrooms before and acid and stuff." He's like, "Yeah, a few times." And I'm like, "Would you ever compare that drug to marijuana?" He's like, "They are totally opposite. Like marijuana, it kind of chills you out. You kind of get on the couch,
Yeah.
you want to order a pizza, watch some TV. You get into shrooms and that, you're going on a trip. Like it's not." So I find it weird that, like, I'm not sure if her friend was intentionally trying to make it sound like he was getting really heavy into drugs. I'm just, from what I've read in the journals and from what I've seen in other researchers, he wasn't some big druggie. Like, I don't think they have a leg to stand on when they kind of try to point him down that path that, he was, like, getting into drugs and stuff
Correct.
like that. And Kamel smoked marijuana, like her friend said, too. So, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, that's a big thing, and she also drank. They also drank too,
right,
but that's a big thing. You bring up a great point because even the cops say that that is not a part of the actual motive. They have no motive, by the way,
right.
and that's a big thing too. Because you would think if they're going to accuse David, you need a motive. I would think that would be one of the first things that you would have, and they have no motive for David doing this. They just say because we couldn't find anybody else that did it, David did it. Well, that is not how you do this. You can ask any cop. Maybe not in the AVPD, but you may be able to ask some cops in the Apple Valley Police Department, but obviously they don't want to lose their pension, their retirement. They may not publicly talk about things that they may privately talk about. But
Exactly.
you know, Yeah, it's that was just one of the strange things is that, they're talking about weed and, but there's no motive for that. But yet you still have people that are saying, well, he was doing this and that's what led to it. It's not in his system, which is weird. That's another strange thing. It's like it makes it look more strange because the weed is out there, but yet it's not in his system there. I mean, he has pipes, he has bongs, so I have no doubt that he was smoking weed as, casually or in a general way, from his 28 and a half birthday on up until then. He writes about it, what he's using it for. It's the same stuff that I used to actually use it for, to write.
Hmm.
It would help me write it, whether I was writing books, writing songs, whatever, writing scripts. It helped me write. So I used to use it for that same thing too. So that's not a big stretch for him to do that. But he even writes in his journal that he saw there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that at some point he couldn't do that. And it sounded like because of his daughter, he needed to keep a clear mind
Right.
for her. He had already sacrificed so much stuff for her. With this movie, with this project, he had already sacrificed all of this stuff, those years that you just can't get back with your kids. Even as a soldier, he was actually stop lost, so he had planned on coming back and everything, and to be with his family. He got stop lost, and then that didn't happen. And then he gets back. He's in film school, so obviously he's going to school. He doesn't have that time to spend with his daughter.
Hmm.
I don't know if his daughter was autistic, but Kamel did say in a comment that she cured her daughter of autism. That is a fact. So I know a lot of people have asked me, don't bring that up, but it's like, well, if we're going to bring up everything, if we're really going to try to figure out what happened here, we have to bring it all up.
Right.
Everything,
Right.
everything. And I'm talking about everything that's in that journal, including the sexual stuff too, that I
Hmm.
know people don't want to bring up. It may be relevant, it may not be relevant, but this is a crime here. Okay, that's why everything in their life is open, for in my view. And I know some of my closest friends totally disagree with that point, and that's fine.
Hmm.
But it's all open because it's all actually relevant, because it will either help prove yes, no, or maybe so, or maybe it just will show nothing. I think a lot of the stuff is just a big nothing in this case. There's a lot of rabbit holes, like we know, a lot of things that, a lot of trails that you can go down, but you have to go down that rabbit hole in order to see how far that it does go.
Right.
So it's, for me, man, I go down every hole. So people may hear me talk about things, twist it, take it out of context, and think that I think that the government killed them. No, but I'm going to look into that for
Right.
sure.
Yep.
I'm going to look into everything, uncover, leave no stone unturned. And I'm also not going to kind of keep documents that I think that the public shouldn't see. I'm never going to do that. If I
Right.
get it, you'll get it. Everybody gets it. Case closed. That's it. That's my view on it. The Just one more thing about the whole weed thing is,
Right.
remember that fake document that we were talking about?
Yes.
The fake document pretty much tries to go down that route, that the motive was David smoking weed and doing drugs. And
Hmm.
so that is completely, that's one more reason why the document is fake, but it's completely counter to what the police actually say and to what they found. They're very clear. There's no motive in this case. And definitely weed. I think for
Right.
anyone to think that weed was, you'd have to think maybe Reefer Madness was a documentary in order to believe something like
Exactly.
that. So
And I just don't think that he would leave how protective he was over his daughter. He wouldn't leave it on his dresser like that. Like it
that's
just,
weird too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just find that really strange. I mean, I've never left my weed out on a dresser like that. I'm not saying other people can't do that. I'm just find knowing how protective he was. I think he would try to keep that so far away from her, and
Yeah.
so I
I
just
think
it's
you're
a,
right on that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just something to think about. And
Sure.
another thing I wanted to ask you about too was um, at the time of his of this the murder suicide. What was, from what you've researched and what you can tell, was David in? They keep saying he was in this dark place, and that he was losing grip, and that all the story that people say.
Right.
From what the research you've done, where right up to the point of where this happened, what have you found? What do you think? How is his life going from what you can tell from his journals and what you've researched? Was he going in? Was it everything that you can tell going in a positive place? Like what was the trajectory that he was on at the time of this happening?
Sure. Yeah, I think what we found in the documents, in the crime scene photos, looking at his house, is he was planning for the future, and I think that's a big thing. If you're planning for your future, it's a pretty good chance you're not going to kill yourself, which is another motive that police could not find. Right? They should have seen the downward spiral. That's why they didn't talk about David's deal. They didn't want people to know about David's deal. They didn't want people to know about the $14,000 check that was found outside of his house. They just, it was a subconscious thing. So people who wanted to believe David Crowley was guilty would think he didn't have money. The deal was done, which apparently some of his family even thought, which is a whole nother thing that we should definitely, because there's some interesting theories on why David wouldn't tell people that he actually had this deal. Who did he really trust? Who was he really trustworthy of? But he had this deal going. He was writing, he was posting on Facebook, talking about the documentary that he was working on. He was talking about that, saying, it's done. It's got a few more weeks. This was on December 9th, and that's one of the posts that was removed from David Crowley's Facebook page after David died, and that's one that the police found too. But so there was a lot of evidence that David was planning for his future. And so you would have to weigh that against, okay, what is the evidence that he was planning to kill everybody and himself? And I just, I see lots of evidence of him planning for his future. He's got a deal that is working. He is supposed to be working on a treatment for this new TV series. The deal is not dead. The deal is fine. In his journal, he's talking about his future. He's talking about his daughter's 18th birthday. He's talking about all these things that he wants to do. He's talking about moving to California. There may even be some evidence that they were really moving to California, that they really took some of those major steps to get there. But if you compare all of that stuff, of all of the planning for his future, it's hard to discount that. It's hard to discount all of that and then to just say that he went to this dark place and just snapped. It doesn't line up. We're talking, it's like two parallel worlds that are just converged, that haven't converged. Let's converge them and let's see what the real truth is here.
Right.
Was he planning for his future? Was he planning to kill everybody and then kill himself too, when he had everything going for him?
Exactly.
That's the way that I see it.
Then no, I see, and that's the thing too. Talking about that, about him, the way that they're painting him into this dark place. I remember I was very excited when I heard about the documentary coming out on Netflix. I was like, oh my God, they're doing a documentary. I'm hoping that they're going to show both sides of this fairly, like I'm trying to do in my interviews with people. I was very excited about watching it. I remember, like, I was right there when finally you were able to watch it on Netflix, and I watched it, and very quickly got a little discouraged because they definitely they really hammered like this going to a dark place. I find that kind of disturbing that in this documentary that they really lead the person down this path of him going into a dark place, and this is what happened, and it could have been PTSD. Nobody knows. And supposed friends that these people in his life are great friends of his and best friends, and they're on the team, but meanwhile he's not talking to them. They haven't talked to him in like a month and stuff like that. I'm thinking, okay, you can't be that good of a friend, in my opinion. Like, it's kind of weird. And so that kind of really, like, I just found, what did you think about that, the Netflix series, if you did see it? Like, did you get that same feeling that they were definitely trying not to look at both sides of it and lead you down a path?
Yeah, it was so bad that Kamel's family had their footage taken out of that film.
Oh, really?
That's how bad it actually was. They had gotten a early screening of it, and they were like, what the hell is this? What is this film? Like, what are you guys trying to say? They were trying to push the pack theory.
Okay.
because Sean Wright believes there is a pact. We know David's dad also believes that there is a pact.
Okay.
Um, and so they were trying to push that. And of course, Kamel's family is like, what?
Right.
Where is this coming from? So at that point, I think Kamel's family kind of opened up to us too, and they were a little more willing to talk and like, man, we need to get our side out too. And these are the only guys that are actually open to it.
Right.
So they started reaching out to us too.
And that's
Um,
amazing. Like, and that's
yeah,
and I want to let my viewers know that you and Dan Henning were actually in this documentary a little bit at the beginning, and a little bit I find near the like kind of near the end. Now, how when they came to see you, how did they present this to you? Were they selling it to you as that we're gonna do a fair right down the
hmm
middle, look at it both sides? And how long did they actually I've always wanted to ask people this that do interviews
sure.
for movies and documentaries. How long did they actually interview you for? And did they look at the evidence that you have and that you've shown people?
Sure. So they had contacted Dan Hennon. They contacted me. Yeah, I was very reluctant to do it. But I figured, okay, whatever, let's do it. I talked to my wife. She did not want them coming to our house. At the time, I was like, why? What's the big deal? I understand now. I understand now because it was a big setup. Um, the people that came to Dan's house, one of the people was Chris Peck. He should not have been there at the house, inside of Dan's house. There were some weird things that happened while people were inside of Dan's house. Um, I could tell you that if stuff like that would have happened in my house, would not have went well for anybody.
Okay.
But so, anyways, my wife was adamant they're not coming to our house. The interview was done at my mom's house. And so they showed up there. I had a lot of people there, just there, family, just chilling, hanging out and stuff.
Yep.
They were nice. The film crew, very nice. 3, 4 guys, very cool, no problems, et cetera, et cetera. The guy's name was Robert Erickson, Streetcar Dreams, and he was like a contractor. So he was hired to come to the house. And so I was chatting with him, very nice guy. We were learning more stuff about Jim Gummert. We didn't have any of the documents at that
Right.
point. We didn't have any of the DNA, the phone records, the electron. We didn't have anything really. We had the 94 pages and the 464 photos, and that's really it at that point there. I don't even think I had done the interview with Detective Gummert yet, the 21 questions. I may have done the 21. Actually, I did do the 21 questions because I remember telling Robert that we had caught Jim Gummert in a lie. Basically, Jim Gummert had said something to me, and he had told Dan Hannon something completely different.
Okay.
And he had admitted that he was wrong at that point. But Robert Erickson, he interviewed me for about 1 hour, and then he hung around for another hour while Dan Hennon and I did a live show. That show is still out there somewhere too.
Okay.
Um, but during the interview, I completely felt like he wanted me to just bash Sean Wright. He wanted me to just, he wanted to talk about, he wanted the dirt, basically. He wanted all of the dirt, wasn't really looking at, okay, look, man, they have this bullet hole and they missed it. They have this bullet, they have this thing, they say they don't have any actual motive, they don't have any proof, et cetera, et cetera. They weren't really interested on the facts. They were just more interested in getting me to talk bad about Sean Wright. That's the way that I really felt. It was
Wow.
more about that than about, and I didn't understand why they were even talking to me. I didn't know David Crowley.
Okay.
I was just some guy who was doing videos on it, and that's really it. Like, why
Right.
what do you guys want to talk to me about? And so, but I was very very disappointed because I tried to focus on the facts. I tried to focus on what those 94 pages showed and what these documents showed, and how there was no evidence that David Crowley was guilty. you can see what they put into the documentary and what they didn't. The part that they put into that, where it says, I don't care about my credibility means nothing to me, that is a direct quote from the conversation that I had with Sean Wright.
Okay.
So they use that out of context, which is fine. I really don't care, because that's how I really feel. But it was just weird the way that they use that. And I was like, what are you guys trying to do here? You're trying to, you know, that to get me to admit that I don't have any credibility. I don't give a shit about my credibility. My credibility means nothing to me. I care about truth. That is 100% accurate then. It's 100% accurate now. Okay. I don't care if I'm right, if I'm wrong. I want to find what the truth is here, and I want the people to have access to it. That's it. And to be able to decide for themselves. That's what I was hoping that this documentary was going to do. And they did exactly what I hoped that they wouldn't do.
Right.
They just set out to make David Crowley look guilty without providing evidence, without providing any facts, and that was troublesome.
Oh,
Very troublesome.
I totally like, yeah, and it probably definitely left a bad taste in your mouth about the whole documentary, the way they shoot documentaries and that. Like, I know I would be a little upset about that, because you think that they would have, if they were doing a fair assessment of the whole case, that they would show some of the evidence that you were showing them and bring some of that up and have you a little bit more in it. And as you clearly stated too, you could see by halfway through the movie that they're leading you down a path that they want you to believe. And
right.
I mean, I've had people argue with me on that. I've had a friend argue with me that I'm close to say, no, I didn't see it that way. And I'm like, well, you're entitled to that. I'm not telling you what you're seeing or what you're not seeing. I'm just showing, my opinion is that they're leading you down that path. And I was really troubled by the ending too. It just seemed to kind of abruptly end, and they kind of throw like a happy song at the end with the dog Paleo. And I just found, did you find that it ended kind of abruptly like that? I found it really a weird ending. Like, they tried to, it was really dark, and then it was like the producer was like, okay, we needed to put something happy in here now, so let's play a nice song and show the dog. And
that song is the song that was in the crime scene photos. So that was kind of weird. It's also kind of weird that they used David Crowley for the whole soundtrack. So they're actually using they're calling David Crowley a killer, but they're using his music for the soundtrack of that film, which I thought was kind of weird to kind of have the way you guys playing both sides again. But the film was not supposed to end like that. The film was supposed to end with Kamel's sister having a baby, and it was supposed to show them coming full circle. But when Kamel's family, did I lose you?
No, you're there. I see you.
Okay. Yeah, but when Kamel's family had their footage taken out, they had to scramble. Okay. And so what you saw was the dog at the very end, which to me it also didn't really make any sense either. You're showing this dog, and then the dog was very uncomfortable too, with the people that were also there.
Right.
So it was just a very weird thing. It really, to me, it made absolutely no sense. Why, like, what, you're happy that the dog ate all the people and didn't die or something? I didn't get it. I really didn't get it.
And I'm sure somebody's going to ask me, do you know what happened to Paleo? Is he alive still? Is he been adopted by a family member? What's the status on him?
He went home. He went back to where he was actually born. Okay. So he was where he was born, and where David bought him, I guess. I don't know what the correct term, whatever. Yeah. Right. Where he adopted him. It's the same place that Sean Wright also adopted his dog too. But that's where the dog went back home to be with his mom.
Okay.
So that's
the dog.
That's what happened.
That's amazing. It's good to know the dog is still doing good. I've had somebody ask me that. They're like, "Well, whatever happened to the dog?" And I said, "I'll ask them." I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what they should have. I don't know why they didn't put that in the documentary. If they're going to put the dog in that, do the whole happy ending.
Exactly. And they did interview a lot of people for the documentary. Now, before all of this happened, were you friends, or did you know anybody that was part of the Gray State team? Like, were you friends with Sean Wright?
Sean Wright, yeah.
Danny Mason?
I did know Sean.
Just okay.
Yeah, just Sean. Yeah, Sean was the only one that I knew.
Right. And were you good friends with them, or was it just casual?
No, it was casual. I was in the We Are Change East Bay group, the We Are
Okay.
Change San Francisco group, and and he was running GCN. He wasn't running it, but he was like working with them. So he was recruiting people, and there were a lot of strange things that I found out later that people felt like he was some type of informant. I don't know if that's true, but I've had multiple people from We Are Change tell me that that's how they felt, that they felt like he was hitting on girls there when they would go to these different things.
Hmm.
I can't verify that. I'm just saying what trust people that I trust have that's what they've told me. I never saw that. I never witnessed that. You know, I know he does have a criminal record, an extensive criminal record too. But it always felt like he was recruiting people, and so I never had really any issues with him. He was recruiting people. He tried to recruit me to do some blogging, basically, and so I think I sent him something that it really sucked at the time. Whatever I did was not good. I'll tell you, it was not good, and so I kind of knew him from that, and that was it. And then a couple of days after David's death, I get a call from Sean, and you know, he's like asking me, or I don't know if he called me first. No, I think he sent me some messages on Facebook and was just pretty much telling me to stop asking questions. You know, and
Okay.
all that is public, all that's out there too. That's all public stuff. But yeah, he was basically telling me to stop asking questions. They know David is guilty. They know what happened, and they will tell everybody when the time is actually right. And 7 years later, here we are. We're still waiting for that.
Okay. So
So
is he leading? Do you feel he's leading you to believe that there's more to this case than is being presented, and they're kind of sitting on it? Is that not a crime? Like, you have to, if you know something, you have to tell the
yeah,
authorities.
you
Do you?
should.
I would
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
And so,
yeah. Yeah,
okay, go
he
ahead.
was acting like he was acting like he had some knowledge, some secret knowledge
Right.
about stuff. When I asked the police about certain things that had come up about him, where he had said that he saw this hand in the basement or something, there were hands in the basement. The police were like, "There's no hands in the basement." You know, it really just felt to me like Sean was just trying to mislead people and was trying to tell people, hey, we know David's guilty. Let's just not talk about it. We still want to move forward with his project. We can't do that if you guys are going to keep this up. You know, don't do this, all of this stuff. He actually told me, you know, that I should not be associated with Dan Hinnon and this other guy named Thomas Lapp. They both created a Facebook thing at the same day, at the same time. It was pretty crazy. But he told me that I should not be associated with those guys because I would not want a spotlight put on me by the DHS and the feds. And
Okay.
at this point, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And even when we talked to the cops, one of the 21 questions that I asked Detective Gummer was, were the feds ever involved? Was DHS ever involved? And he's like, no, they were never involved in
And
this.
why? And
So you
why
keep,
would they? Why would they wanna? Why would they put a spotlight on you just for asking questions?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's the weird thing. Like unless they're involved in something, why would the hell would they care about some guy who has, you know, 30, 40 views on a video? It
Right.
didn't make any sense. It was just all to just kind of scare me, to get me to stop making videos, to stop asking
Right.
questions on it.
That's really strange. And have you had any, like, when's the last time you were speaking with him or anyone from that team, or have you spoke to anyone?
Once he threatened me, I stopped talking to him. He threatened to come over to my house with some off-duty police cops.
Okay.
And so at that point, I'm like, dude, like, you know, that's pretty much it. So I stopped talking to him.
Wow.
Um,
So it goes that
and
there is
yeah,
people actually being threatened. There's people
yes,
for real. There's
yes,
people being like I said, I'm writing this in the middle, so I don't know, but like
sure,
there is
sure,
actual people being threatened for just asking questions. Like,
correct. That's right.
that is crazy
It
to me.
makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like if you're so sure David's guilty, you got the evidence, you got the proof. What the hell do you care if people are asking questions? Why not help them? Why not show
Right.
us the evidence? That's what I asked them. Show me the evidence. Oh, I can't show it to you. Well, then you don't have it.
Exactly.
The
And
police don't have it. How could he have it? And if he has
exactly.
it, give it to the police so they can solve this case and we can move
Exactly.
on.
Yeah, that's really strange. And Do you know what the like is? Is there anything actually moving with the Gray State? Is there? Do you know if anybody's trying to get this movie made? Who owns
They
this?
had tried.
Who owns this movie now? Like, is it just in limbo now, or is there actually
It's
owners
in
to it?
limbo. It's in limbo. I mean, there's theories about that. I really don't know. I don't really think anybody does really. David's dad might have the most legal rights to it. Danny August Mason obviously thinks that he has rights to it because he tried to go forward with it too. Um, when he did that, I was still in talks with Mason Hendricks, and I was continuing to talk to him until I felt like he was lying to me. Then I stopped talking to him. But while I was talking to him, he said there's no way Danny Mason can go forward with anything without David's dad.
Okay.
So it was like, well, what about Kamel's? What about? And that's what Kamel's sister had told me is like, dude, that stuff is never getting made. They will have to go through us, and we are never going to let them do that. So
Wow.
it's the craziest thing. Think about this. They are accusing this guy of killing a 5-year-old child,
Hmm.
of killing a young woman, and then killing himself, and they want to take that project and make money off of it. What Hollywood company in their right mind is going to say, "Oh yeah, this is great. Yeah,
Hmm.
let's take the project from a killer and go forward with it."
Right.
Once David is accused of that crime, the project is dead.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
motive.
Oh, for sure. That's what I was going to ask you about. But kind of bring this all around. Like,
Sure.
um, who? Like, I understand from what I understood that somebody who like the people that could kind of something to gain. Like, I know that from what I could tell from some of the videos I watched and what I read is that David was trying to get uh, was it Dan? Okay,
Danny
I'm
Mason.
Danny
Yeah, you're
Mason
right. Yeah.
to sign
Hmm.
over all. What was he trying to get him to sign over? Like all rights to the Gray State? Like he want?
Basically,
Okay, and
yeah.
then how did that go? Did that ever get resolved, or was Dan fighting him on
No.
this all the way?
Danny August Mason was basically stalling all the way up until David died. So
Wow.
yeah, David is pushing for this. And what's weird about this is I don't know if you've seen the interview that Dan Hennon did with Mike Boggio, the Hollywood producer that David was actually working with. He had no idea that David was doing this. He didn't understand why is David even doing this. He didn't feel like it was necessary.
Okay.
Basically, for whatever reason, David did, and he had his friend Mitch Heil. He had him sign the same document. Mitch Heil did, no problem. Danny August Mason kept delaying it. They were going back and forth on what would Danny August Mason get, what he wouldn't get. He wanted rights to this other film. He wanted rights to the character, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
Which is weird when we got the 2014 script, and you can see Danny August Mason's character is not in that script. So by 2014, Danny August Mason's character is completely gone. And that's
Okay.
probably why Mike Boggio was like, I don't, what does this have to do with anything? His character is not even here. But obviously, from my view, I believe Daniel Alex Mason does have some rights to it. He has a
I
story
agree.
credit,
I agree. I
yeah,
agree.
and David clearly gave him story credit. David, makes it several references of Daniel August Mason being involved in this. So I believe Daniel August Mason would have um,
Right.
some type of rights to this, maybe not legally. I don't know, but obviously David felt he would, or he wouldn't have asked him to sign these documents,
Right, and I
right?
can see him being very protective over signing that over all over to David because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
worked on this for a lot of years, and if all of a
right.
sudden I was working with my friend and he sent me a paper saying I want you to sign all of your rights over, I'd be a little hesitant too. I mean, if I was putting that much work and blood, sweat, and tears into this project, I mean, I kind of wonder why David was trying to isolate, like get everybody off of it and kind of keep it just to himself. I don't know if he thought that he had to do that to get a deal. I don't know what his mindset was. I just find it kind of weird that, in my opinion, that he was trying to get everybody to sign off their rights to
Sure.
that project since they were part of it, from what I can tell from day one.
Yeah, and David doing this as late as December 17th, December
Right.
19th, 2024, or sorry, 2014, also shows that David was planning for the future, not planning to kill himself and kill his family within a couple days or a couple weeks.
Exactly. No, that makes total sense. And so that, like, it's just so many things that are just really strange about this case, and so many characters involved. Like, who do you think?
Yeah.
Say it was somebody did do this and set it up to make it look like David did. In your opinion, from your research, who do you think had to benefit from David being totally out of the picture? Like, what? There has to be a reason if somebody did this to him. Like, I can't just.
Yeah,
What do you think would be a reason? Like, or who would have a reason? Just your opinion. If you don't want to give your
sure.
opinion, that's fine. I totally understand if you don't want to say that. But I'm just curious if you have any theories on who would benefit from David and his family being taken out the way they were.
Yeah, I think the only two things that I would want to say on that, because I do try to keep it focused to, just the facts of what
Right.
proves him guilty and what doesn't. But the
Understandable.
first thing that I would say on that is, I think that the motive, as far as David's friends, the Gray State goons, as I call them, I believe they have motive to make sure David doesn't die. Really, because
Exactly.
if David follows through, if he becomes rich and famous, they're going to be able to ride those coattails. Even if David has distanced himself from them, they're
Right.
going to all benefit from Sean Wright, all these guys. They're
Right.
going to benefit from it. So I've always had a hard time with the notion, the theory that, man, these guys have that motive, to do that. The only thing that I would say is it would have to be, somebody who felt David was a threat and did not want David to live on this earth.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's a very bland, generic answer. But
No, I totally agree. Like, I've always thought that too. That like everybody's like, oh, the people in this team closest to him may have taken him out because they wanted the rights to the movie and all of that. And I'm thinking, they, if David Crowley dies, the project basically dies with him. Like, he's the one that was
right,
gonna, like, he was the writer of it, the main writer. He was the one that was working on the screenplay for it and the movie and everything. So why it doesn't make any sense to me to take him out, because the project, as we said earlier, is dead in the water basically. So
right,
I have
right.
kind of trouble buying that. Um, I
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
only if they really didn't care about the project, if their motive had nothing to do with the project or something like that. But I don't know. Yeah, to me,
Right.
it just seems like, man, if David dies, they all
Lose.
they all lose. You're right. That's a
Right.
great way
No,
to
and
say. Yeah.
yeah, they all lose. So I've never really bought into the whole government, like the government came after him and stuff like that. And my wife was the one that brought that up, because I was like, well, maybe it
Mhm.
was a government. When I first started looking into it, my wife was like, maybe this is a, maybe he was getting so close to the truth in this trailer that the government came and got him. And I'm like, my wife said, there's a lot of people that make movies about the topics he was talking about. There's a lot of people that make videos, and they're not all getting killed basically for a concept trailer. I think that's a big stretch. What do you think? Like, that the government went.
I yeah, I tend to lean towards that. The more that I research David and the more that I realize how talented he is,
Mm-hmm.
how brilliant he is, maybe not this project, but maybe a project later on. You look at what year this is, 2015.
Right.
This is about 1 year before Donald Trump gets in office. This is about, what, 3 years before the whole coronavirus thing, which
Yep.
does have the lockdown, the police state. I mean, it pretty much is. It's different, but it's very, very
It's
similar.
very similar. I agree.
It's very similar.
Right.
So, I mean, picture David working on a film about this stuff happening right now. So, I mean, but again, it wouldn't be the government. It's not like it's like, the president sitting in the White House, oh, we got to get rid of this guy or something like that.
Exactly.
It could be, and people who know how the whole black ops work, the whole deep state thing, whatever you want to call it, these cults and stuff like that, which, I think there is a lot of stuff. I believe David was involved in some paranormal stuff. And I don't know how far back that stuff goes. I believe that there is proof that there is. He talks about it in his journal. He
Exactly. I
talks
wanted
about
to talk
seeing
to you
this
about that tonight.
orb or something like
Yeah.
that, and so yeah, I think that there is something there. And if you're involved in stuff like that, your enemies are now not of this world. And
Right.
that takes it to a whole new level. So the motive, the people, all the things that could have happened, it just that takes it to a whole new level. And there's so many different theories, and I'm fascinated by all the theories. I
So am
love
I.
hearing them.
Like
I
what?
love
Like
talking about them, working them out.
right. Like I totally agree. I'm fascinated by that topic too. And what I wanted to ask you was, from what I can, the only bit that I've researched so far is I definitely saw that in the documentary on Netflix that you could see Kamel was having some weird things going on,
Yes.
where she was talking about seeing figures and her daughter was hearing voices, if I'm correct, and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Can you, through your research, did you ever, do you know how far that, did they ever talk about paranormal stuff back, like in their journals, or from what you can tell, has this been going on for a while, from what you can tell?
When I spoke with Kamel's sister, she had a paranormal experience, and that would have had to have been back in 2013, not when they were at this house either. So whatever it is, it didn't start at this house that
Okay.
they died in. What the sister basically said is she was sleeping with the daughter. She woke up. She saw this dark figure standing over their bed. She thought it was David. She called out to him. It didn't answer. She realized that it wasn't David. She freaks out, runs out of the bedroom. She sees the daughter's toys flying off the shelves, books flying off the
Wow.
shelves, stuff like that. She sees David down on his hands and knees praying, and he's just saying that something felt off this night. And that's pretty much all that she said. That was supposed to be in that film too, but once Kamel's family stuff got cut out, that got cut out too. That's kind of why the stuff that you see in the film is kind of like there's like it's a weird context. There's no real context to it
Exactly.
because a lot of the film, a lot of the footage that probably would have added more context to the ghosts, whatever that they were seeing stuff, that would have been there. But the fact that Kamel's sister said that, and she's like, I didn't believe in demons, and I didn't take it seriously until I saw it. So I
Wow.
think it probably goes back, and we don't know whose side. If I tend to believe it is something from David's side,
Okay.
but I don't know. It could be something from Kamel's side too. They know about jinn. They know about these demons, these things in the Pakistan, Afghanistan region. Even in like Russia, where my wife came from. She came from that area. Talking about demons and stuff like that it's a more common thing. I've talked to my father-in-law before he passed away. He's seen a lot of stuff. Thank God I've never seen
I
anything. I
know,
don't
me
want to
too.
see it.
Yeah.
I have no desire to see any of that
No.
stuff. But that stuff is real, and I think some people kind of shy away from that with this topic because then you have to worry about the credibility, your credibility, because now maybe you're crazy. You think this
Right.
stuff is all real.
Well,
Danny August Mason was a ghost hunter. He was hunting ghosts, and he's done some ghost stuff. So he kind of knows about all of that too. So yeah, I don't know. That's all that I know about
wow. And
the paranormal
is
stuff.
there anything in David's journal other than what we saw in that documentary? Was he ever talking about this continuing, or was he being had? What was his? Did he mention anything
No,
about this?
he mentions the one about Kamel's the whole rapture thing, but
Right.
he mentions that he saw something. He and his dog are sitting there, and he sees this like white orb, and it just flies off. But the way that he talks about it, and the way that Kamel talks about it, except for when you hear that one thing where she's just crying, aside from that, they both talk about it pretty normally. Even Kamel's sister, like it's just a part of their life, and not really that big of a deal.
Okay.
So
And I wonder,
that's
is
I
there,
yeah.
since you know a little bit about this topic, is there anything in the crime scene that would lead you
Mm,
to believe that this, like, we might as well go there. I mean, like, if we're talking
sure,
about
let's
it,
go there.
why not go there? I mean, I'm totally, do I believe there's a spiritual side and stuff like that. I totally believe that. So I'm not going anywhere that I'm definitely not uncomfortable going in this topic. So why not?
Sure.
Is there anything that, just from what you think, this is just your opinion, is there anything in the crime scene that would lead you to believe that there was something more, this was a spiritual, something, this was something that was done spiritually or demonically, or an entity? Is there anything other than, I would think, to put the blood on the wall kind of thing?
Um, the only thing is I just plugged in my
Yeah,
charger, so
not a
hopefully,
problem.
okay,
Sorry, I didn't
okay,
think I was.
yeah. Oh, it's okay. No, the only thing, let's see. Well, I mean, the whole blood thing obviously is kind of weird,
Right.
right? There's nothing like in the house that I saw there. The submit to Allah is kind of weird. It kind of, that's where the whole jinn and demon thing kind of comes
Right.
into. Um, not really, not really. I mean, the missing hands, but all that stuff is just kind of like it could be, but then it couldn't be. My view is that because I'm sure you have too. We've looked at other cases with demons are
Right.
involved, and a guy thinks there's demons, and they're not this clean, really. And I know it's like it's a stage thing. This would not have to be staged. I believe if there was a demon involved, like if a demon was in David and David thought that Kamel and his daughter were demons, so he had to kill them or something like that, which is one of the scenarios that I've been playing out. I don't think it would be that cut and dry. I think I think it would be more cut and dry. It'd be very clear to see, okay, yeah, he killed them all. There would be blood on a bullet for him,
Yep.
first of all.
Exactly.
There would be a lot more things. There wouldn't be all of this weird stuff that is happening that we're seeing, all the stuff that we've already talked about.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm definitely open to it. I don't know. Whoever did this to him, whatever did this to him, that could definitely be a part of it. Could be part of the cover up too. When you think about the police and you think about all this stuff, and it's like, they don't really know what happened here. If a demon was involved, if something like that was involved, they're not going to say, oh, they're not going to bring
Exactly.
that up too.
Right.
But I can't really find any evidence of that. I remember we've had a couple mediums go into the house, which I'm not a fan of the mediums, but we have had them go into the house, and it didn't seem like they could really find anything. I personally talked to a medium who kind of felt a different way, and this person actually pointed out who they thought the killers were and everything,
Wow.
and what actually happened and who did it and stuff like that. And it's like, man, it's hard to verify, and I don't want to falsely accuse anybody because I don't want to be
Exactly.
falsely accused of anything. And it's like, as a Christian, you have to treat others the way you want to be treated. So I'm not going to run around and start accusing people, because that's not fair unless I have proof. If I
Right.
had some proof, yeah, but I'd probably tell the cops first
Right.
before I just
Right.
go on a show or anything. But I do remember early on one of the crime scene photos, because like orbs and stuff like that, we always hear
Mm-hmm.
about orbs. And that's why if you watch the crime scene video, I was looking for anything, and I didn't see anything. But I do remember somebody had brought it up, and this is where we need photo a photographer who knows the difference between flare and orbs. This is why I don't talk about it too much, but
Okay.
there is one of the photos in the bedroom, where people say that it looks like orbs. It looks like flare to me. It looks like flare, but again, I don't know.
Right.
And I've never had somebody who is a professional photographer say no, this is a flare because of this. It looks like a flare because everything looks in line. Orbs tend to be a little more out of focus or
Right.
just over here, over there. But
Right.
it just, to me, it looked like flare. That was the only physical thing that I saw as far as the crime scene, related to the crime scene there, that
Okay.
had anything to do with it. But as far as in the house, we didn't find any like occultist books or anything like that.
That's what I was going to
Um,
ask you, because I do,
yeah,
from what I could tell in the journals, he was definitely on a spiritual journey, and I think so Kamel was. I think they were kind of exploring, is what I like to
I
call it.
think you're right. I think you're
And
right. Yeah,
yeah, and I know people right now that are listening are going, "Oh my God, they're talking about demons, they're talking about spirits." But let's not forget, even in the documentary, you hear them talk about she saw something, he
That's
saw
right.
something, like, and
That's right.
the daughter reacted to something. So we're not, how far off the mark are we when we at least bring this topic up? I know it's a strange topic to a lot of people, but we're not just
Yeah.
pulling it out of thin air. There was actually,
Right.
he mentions it in his journals, and we saw it in the documentary. So this was something that, whatever it was, they were experiencing, whatever it could be. I mean, I've heard people say that maybe the government was zapping the house and making them crazy. I mean, I've heard, you hear some
I've
crazy
heard
stuff.
that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard some crazy
Sure.
stuff, like theories of what was going on, but it's definitely something that they were experiencing. And I mean, I don't think it would be drugs or anything like. I've never heard of marijuana doing that, where you're seeing spirits and stuff like that. I mean, nothing that I've ever smoked done that. I find it very. It's an interesting topic, and it's just it. It's very. It wouldn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore, and
Right.
especially
Right.
with this case, the more I see this, the more I read about it, and the more I watch videos on it, it's just leading me all over the place. And I think it's kind of, you got to be kind of careful not to get too lost in all of these different rabbit holes, because everybody's kind of got an opinion of what happened. You got one camp saying, like I was saying at the beginning, that firmly believe he did it. Then you got the other camp saying that there's no way that he did it, and it's a fine line to walk. So
Hmm.
I mean, like, does your gut tell you, like, what do you really don't think there's enough evidence to say that he did this, right? Like, you're in that
I don't
camp.
think there's any. I don't think there's any evidence. Not. I think it's zero
Wow,
evidence.
zero
And
evidence.
based on the documents, the police documents, the police photos, it is very clear they have no evidence that
Wow.
David did any of this stuff. It's all right there.
Okay, I'm just saying, I think that's a bold statement. I just know what people are going to say. They're going to be like, "He's crazy that there's no evidence," and I mean, they're entitled to think
There
that.
isn't. I mean, okay, maybe maybe there's circumstantial evidence, I
Right.
guess, right? Maybe there's a lot of theories but if you read what the police are saying, their 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 conclusion to why David Crowley is guilty is because they couldn't find any evidence that anybody else
Did it.
is guilty. Yeah,
Right.
that's it. Well, that has nothing to do with the evidence that shows David Crowley. What evidence did you find that David Crowley is guilty? That's what we're looking for, the
Right.
physical evidence. If this was in a court of law, okay? I mean, come on. We can't, because here's the precedent, the bad precedent that this sets is that anybody could stage a suicide and make it look like a suicide after seeing this case and think that they could get away with something like this too. We don't
Right.
want that.
Right.
That's why it's very important if David did it. And again, I'm open to David Crowley being guilty, doing this. You got to have the evidence. If there is no evidence that David Crowley did this, then he is not guilty. It's that simple. And I have found zero evidence.
Wow. That's a big statement to me. That's like, I know, I'm serious, and I admire you for that, because like I said, you've done a ton of research into this. You're not just saying this based on a couple things that you've read. I've seen everything you've done, and seen the videos, and I've seen how much you've looked into this. So I mean, the fact that you're saying that is very impressive to me, because it shows that you're really looking at everything, and like, as you said, you're open to the fact that he could be
Yeah,
guilty. You're not
sure.
I've never heard in any of your videos say, like, I mean, there's no way that he didn't do this. Like, you're like, I'm totally open to the fact. And I think that's very important, that you're not dug in on your side. You just want the truth. You want
Right.
evidence, and that's what we base crimes on, and that's how you have your guilt or your innocence, is you need evidence. And I find, like, so really, like, I'm wow. That really threw me when you said that there's zero. I'm just trying to think about it. I'm like, I'm going through my head of all the evidence, going, there's got to be something that
There's got to be something. There's got to
there's,
be something. Yeah.
yeah. And
So this is why it may be good for you to have people on that, hey man, we have the evidence, I'm sure that many people would love to hear it. I'm sure they would love. I'd love to find the evidence too. I'm sure many people would. But in my experience, what I usually get is it's not the evidence. They don't have the evidence. It's little nitpicking things. It's these stupid things that can always be debunked later on. It's more about me and my personality or things they don't like about me or stuff like that. Never about just, okay, what evidence proves David Crowley guilty?
Okay, and is there people on, like, I know the other people on, I've seen some YouTube channels that do have videos saying that he's guilty and that but they don't really show any evidence. Are you aware of any channels that actually have evidence that they sit down and prove that he's guilty, like you're doing
I'm
right here?
I'm I'm not, but I got to be honest with you, is I have not um, found any other channels, or I don't pay attention to any of those channels. So
Okay. Okay. Well, no,
yeah,
that's understandable. I was just wondering because I noticed that with when I see you and Catherine and people that I've watched their videos, you guys actually show pictures, you show documents, you show police reports, you show evidence, and then you give a
yeah.
reason why you think that the evidence is not what they say it is, or that it's leading you away from what really happened. So that's why I was asking if there's anyone putting time in on the other side, showing that he
There,
did do it.
there, there might be.
I haven't found any.
There might be. Yeah, I mean, I would hope so, but I would also hope, hey, if there is, make sure that the cops have that documentation, have those videos, because they don't have the evidence. So if you
Right.
have evidence that they don't have, please make sure that you get it to them,
Exactly.
because as far as they're saying, the case is ruled exceptionally clear. It's not David is guilty, case closed. There is a difference here.
Okay.
So
And that's what I was saying at the beginning too. Is that I'm more than willing to bring on other people from the opposing side if they want to bring evidence or have a debate with you or anyone else. I'm willing to set that up as long as it's kept respectful and it's based on evidence. I just don't ever want to get into a situation where I'm doing an interview or in the comment section where people are just lobbing insults at people and
yeah,
going
I
back.
would, I've made two short videos, a 2 minute video, a 3 minute video. Ask them to debate that video,
Okay.
and you'll pretty much be able to gauge if they're really serious or if they're full of shit.
Okay.
You'll be able to really see it, because if they can say, okay, well, I can disprove everything in this 2 minute, 3 minute video, great,
Okay.
great. Then I would consider a debate with them. But
Okay.
as here's, I will debate Danny August Mason, no problem. No
Okay.
problem with that.
Okay.
He's challenged me. He has not accepted. He has backed away from it for whatever reason. People that were involved in it, that would be great to kind of get them on and to have them prove it. But the problem is they're not going to be able to prove David Crowley guilty. So the debate thing was always kind of a just a way to get them to talk, so that
Okay.
they could get tripped up.
Okay.
And
I see.
it worked. It worked with all
Right.
of them. It worked. And so then, but the people who are like, well, yeah, they want to debate. They wanted to debate Catherine, I think, and they didn't show up.
Yes.
She showed up to their debate. They didn't show up to their own debate.
Right.
You know, actually, William Rail, same thing. He set these things up, and I tell him, I said, you guys are just wasting your time. I said, that's why I'm like, here's my video. Here's my 2 minute video, my 3 minute video. If you can debate this 5 minute video, you can have them on, play the video for them, have them debate that. Let's see how that goes.
Okay, that's a great idea. No, because that's a problem I kind of run into is I don't know who is like just trolling me and who's serious about it. I want to interview
Sure,
people that are serious on either side. I want to hear. I'm very like I told you. I want to hear both sides. I don't think it's fair. I hear one side and then not give the other side a chance to make their case. But I just have to
sure,
find the people that are very passionate about their side, pro or con, and then they can
sure.
make their arguments. So that's a great way if they can debate, like you said, that 3 minute video. It's going to kind of let me gauge if they're serious and if they do got some evidence that they want to bring forth. Because we're all for the evidence. We both stated that, and that's a great way to do it. Like that's a really cool. I'm going to do that because I do want to debate. I do want to have the opposing side. I just got to figure out who is serious about it enough, and I don't want just somebody coming on here and just saying they're wrong, they're wrong. They're blah blah
Right.
blah. I
Yeah.
want evidence, and so that's a great way. Now, sorry, babbling a little bit there.
It's all good.
I now I remember when I was speaking to you. you were saying that if we did do an interview, that you would wanted to bring up some things about your book that you wanted. I hope you remember that. Was there anything about your book that you wanted to bring up that you wanted to say? Do you remember what Do you remember we were talking about?
Yeah. I think we did kind of mention some of those
Okay.
things. Some of the stuff that we have talked about is stuff that probably people have never heard
Okay.
um, before. One of the other things is the distance um, from the neighbor's house, the neighbor across the street. Because one of the first things that I wrote in my book was about the neighbor who saw David on Christmas Eve,
Okay. I didn't
right?
know that.
And so yeah,
Wow.
so he had seen David. He was at his house. He walked over to the curtains. He saw David. David saw him. And when we kind of looked at like where the two houses were, was like where I thought this neighbor had seen David Crowley from. I was like, there's no way because it's not directly across the street.
Right.
Well, they moved out of the house in 2017. This couple and who had seen David, and so and that's in my book. You can find out, you can read more about that. But the thing that was not put in the book is that if you're in the neighbor's house and you're looking from a certain angle inside the house, you can see David's front window.
Okay.
And I do believe now that that neighbor did really see David Crowley and knew that it was David Crowley. The police questioned him about that,
Okay.
making sure, and
That was my
they
next question.
really, yeah, they really wanted to know, are you sure? Are you sure? Several times they asked him, are you sure that you really saw David Crowley? He was 100% sure. So in order for him to say that he saw David Crowley between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., that obviously shows that David Crowley did not die on Christmas Eve before that time. He
Okay.
would have had to have died late Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So because the police kept pressuring him about this, it made me think maybe the police actually thought that they had all died earlier, maybe Christmas, like early Christmas Eve or something
Okay.
like that. But I just want to let people know, because I have talked about this on some of the podcasts and some of the shows, that from the neighbor's house, from across the street where the neighbor was,
Hmm.
yes, you can see to David's front window, even though the houses are not,
Okay.
right here. From where the neighbor was standing, it is highly possible that he could see them, that he could see David Crowley without any
Wow.
doubt. Um, Another thing was that on October 31st, um, David and Kamel were both seen outside of their house, acting like things were normal. Now, if you remember, on October 18th, October 17th is when Kamel's sister had come to
Yes.
their home, and she felt like David was holding them hostage. And this neighbor pretty much had seen David. They had talked with David and Kamel, and they were there, like, everything was kind of cool. Everything was basically normal. There wasn't any issue like that. So it kind of disproves what Kamel's sister was thinking, that David was, holding them hostage, which doesn't seem like it. Just seems like David and Kamel did not want to talk to Kamel's sister for whatever reason,
Right.
which again is, kind of strange.
No, I
Let
find
me
that
see
very
if there's
strange. And
anything.
another thing that before I forget, I keep thinking about
Yeah.
it while we're talking, then I remember it, and so I wanted to ask you before I
I do too.
forget.
I do the same thing.
Exactly. So I don't feel bad. Yeah, I'm learning as I go here. So now, in the police reports, do they know who died first? Like, do they know the order of death? Because to me, as I stated to you before in your last, when I was in your watching your video when we were in the live chat, to me that's
Mhm.
the heart of this case. Like, if they can prove who died first, is there anything in the reports where they can definitively say who died in what order?
No, because they don't even know what day that they died.
Okay.
They guess, and there's internet activity, I think, up until December 25th, maybe December 26th. I may have gotten that wrong, but um, definitely up until Christmas. But they do not know when these three people died.
Wow.
So in order for them to say, well, who died first, who died second, they can do some really good guessing. Obviously,
Yep.
you have the daughter on Kamel's leg,
Mm-hmm.
so you would think that the order should be Kamel, Rania, and then David.
Right.
But as we talked about, who was laying next to that recliner, it makes more sense that it's actually Rania
Mm-hmm.
because she was closest to it. The dog could have easily took Rania, tried to
Drag it.
drag
Yep.
her to the mom, move the body, broke the arm. I don't know about the rib or anything, pulled the arm off, maybe ate the arm for whatever reason. Just still kind of weird. I don't know. But they don't know. They really don't know. I mean, they can't even put the gun in David's hand,
Right.
and so it's it's hard. How are they going to say that David killed anybody, that he even used that gun?
Exact. That's
So
so strange. And is there,
I know.
like, is there? God, that's just. To me, that's the heart of the case. Like, if you can prove, if they could have proved the order of it. I know I'm like, I mean, I'm sure there is a way that they could have at the time, if they really dug into it and they maybe just would have their best guess. But like, could you imagine just the upset if they found out that, you know, David died first or something? Like, has there ever been anybody that the groups that you've talked to that thinks? My wife kind of brought this up too,
Hmm.
because Kamel was seeing spirits and she was like, you know, from what we saw in the documentary and that she was obviously seeing something going on around her. Is there anybody that's thinking that maybe Kamel did this? That maybe Kamel is the one that broke? Has anyone ever
Yeah,
brought
it's
that
a
up?
yeah, it's a theory that has been passed out, and there's nothing wrong. We need to do this. We need to talk about all
Right,
of this stuff. So people need to feel okay with talking about this. Don't feel like you can't bring this up
right,
because it's going to get shot down or et cetera, et cetera. We're all going to think about this. Why not talk about it? Why not just get it all out there?
right.
Of course it is something to think about. There are a lot of problems with it, and I think obviously she was shot at least twice.
Okay,
You
that's
know,
a
I
that's a
mean,
good point.
I think unless you're Gary Webb, you're probably not going to shoot yourself in the head twice.
Right,
But
right,
you
right.
know, we all know about that one
Oh,
too.
exactly.
But and there's three bullets tied to Kamel, so that means she could have been shot three times too. The other thing is how much blood is there, and she would have had to have lost so much blood in order to do that blood writing and everything. That's one of the reasons why I don't believe the whole pack theory too, is because there would have been there's so much damage, the brutality to
Right.
her, to her body, to everything that happened to her. If it was a pact, I just have a hard time thinking that it would have been so gruesome, so
Agreed.
messy. Why why
I
why would
totally
they
agree.
leave a knife on the ground? Why would they leave a spent round on the ground, or an unspent round on the ground? All
Yes.
those different things. But the other problem is obviously where the daughter is found. The daughter is found on top of Kamel. Kamel is face down. Where the bullets are, where the bullet casings are, seem a little bit off. All of the Quran pages that are actually ripped out. Most of the pages are by David, but there are like one or two pages that are on the other side of Kamel,
Right.
which is kind of weird too. Um, and yeah, she would have had to have been writing on the keyboard in her own blood. She would have had to have been writing the note in the office in her own blood, and then or with while bleeding, I should
While
say, not in her
bleeding,
own blood, but
correct,
while
right?
while bleeding, because it's all her blood. They had fingerprints. They you can clearly see in the
Yes.
crime scene photos they were, but they could not match those to David. They could not match those to Kamel or to anybody. So again, they can't put David writing anything there.
That's a big
Basically,
deal. That's a big deal to
it
me
is a
that
big
they
deal.
can't. They, you should find his fingerprints all over the place. Like I
Yes,
and
and
the fact.
we were told that. Yeah, we were told by Hendricks, by Sean Wright. They said that yeah, they're all there. His fingerprints. They have. I mean, they flat out told me that, and they are liars. They're completely liars because when we got the documents, It said conclusively they do not know, they could not tie those prints to
That's
David.
such a big deal to me. Like you think,
Yeah,
and then like that, I totally agree with kind of. I kind of see what you're saying with Kamel not being able to do it, and also that it was weirdly staged because if it to me where I'm let you know where mine kind of went. And you're a wrestling fan, am I correct? I heard you say you like wrestling.
absolutely. Love it.
Then you're gonna
Yes.
follow me perfect. So I think of a murder suicide, and I think right away you know where I'm gonna go with this
I
with
think
Chris
so.
Benoit,
Chris Benoit. Yep.
and
Yep.
then he took his life and took his children and his wife. But the way he did it was so um, like he wanted it to be presented beautiful. Like that's the only way I can say it. Like he laid them in bed. He had the Bible with him. He, you know, like he didn't put all of this staging, the writing on walls, and you know, putting a song list up. And from what I can tell, like, he made it like to me. That's how if this was a pact, that the theory that they're saying. And this was something they agreed to. It wouldn't be as brutal. Like you said it perfect when you said it was so brutal and they it seems like they just threw everything they could to throw people off the scent. Like they let's write on the
Yeah.
wall, let's have a song list, let's have the dog do something, let's you know like it's just so much. And I found with the Chris Benoit story, that's more if I think of a pact or some man that's going like you know he loved Kamel with all of his heart. That's evident in his journals, and you could just tell. You know he loved his daughter the same way. I just couldn't see a man that even if he snapped PTSD, dark place, whatever they want to paint this brush of David with would be that brutal. I can't. I mean, I could be wrong, and it could very well he done this, but it just seems so brutal when you said the same word, brutal. And what do you think about that? Like, do you not think if he did do this, it would be he would have it wouldn't be this violent to me. That's the only word I can always bring up is it's so violent.
Yeah, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. It wouldn't need to be that brutal. But I mean, when you think about it, we're talking about a 5-year-old child.
Exactly. That's what
It is
bothers me.
not just. Yeah, I mean, she deserves a lot better because there may still be a killer out there who killed
Mm-hmm.
a 5-year-old child, shot her in the head.
Yep.
Like to me, if it's David, I wanna know it's David.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that those police officers, a lot of them, feel the exact same way like we do too.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know. They don't know. They do not know.
Right.
And they're frustrated. I'm sure they have to live with that. I'm sure they dream about it. I'm sure they have nightmares about it. I'm sure it bothers them.
Right.
And I hope that they will help us, that they will help us get the case reopened, man.
Yeah.
Because these people, they deserve better. Whether, if you don't like David, if you hate David like Judy Prochnow, if you don't like his wife, you don't like she's a Muslim, whatever it is, man, we're talking about a 5-year-old child
Right.
that was shot in the head. That is just so brutal. In order to do that, you've got to be a sick, twisted human
Yep.
being. And it's very important to find out who did that. And if it is David, there should be some evidence. There should be some proof. And if then they don't have that, remember they didn't have that bullet. That's the bullet that rolled out of the carpet on January 20th. So
Okay.
up until that point, when they left the house on January 17th, they did not have the bullet tied to the daughter, which is item 53, and they
Yep.
did not have the bullet tied to David, item 57. Now, at least the one tied to Rania had blood on it.
Yep.
The one tied to David did not. But how the hell do you miss a bullet in the living room carpet?
No, it's
That
true.
is, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No.
And I've talked with Catherine. I mean, she's probably right. It's possible that they just missed it. That's fine. That they missed it. But I mean, we're talking about a child here, and I can't stress that enough to people that just want to blindly just believe David Crowley is guilty, that are so quick to believe it. How the hell could you do that when we're talking about this child? Don't you want to be sure? Don't you want to know based on the evidence, not the feelings?
Yep.
It's just crazy. So I mean, if a child wasn't involved in this, I'll be honest with you, I may be a little more open to some of those things too. Okay, maybe it was David. Maybe he and his wife had an argument and things got
Exactly.
out of hand or something. But to do that to a child, no, man. I mean, that's just hardcore. And there's nothing in those journals. There's no motive or anything.
No, I totally agree. And that's another thing I wanted to ask you before. Like, I'm going to let you go shortly. I don't want to keep you much longer, but I'm enjoying this conversation. So,
Yeah, me too.
was there any point where people heard gunshots? Because you would think that if there was this many shell spent rounds, did somebody would have heard something? I would think. Any
Yes.
reports of gunshots, yelling from them, fighting, anything like
No
this?
yelling, no yelling, no fighting. The neighbors say they were, never saw anything like that, never had any issues, nothing like that.
Wow.
Um, Colin Prochnow was asked about when, because he heard something that he said sounded like fireworks. And first he was like December 10th or something like that, and somewhere between December 10th, December 19th. So he wasn't really sure, but whatever he heard, it was it was well before they had died. It was well before Christmas Eve or anything like that.
Okay.
So whatever he heard could not have been the killings, because David Kamel and Rania were all seen up until December 18th or December 19th.
Wow.
So whatever Colin heard around December 10th or so, or December 17th, could not have been those gunshots.
And so
He may have
there's,
heard gunshots.
but they weren't those gunshots.
They weren't those gunshots.
And no
Now there
gunshots heard.
was,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, there was one other neighbor who did hear gunshots. He was not sure exactly when, but he believes it was between Christmas Eve and the New Year's. So he's not really sure when, but sometime between then. And so that's when you get the whole neighbor, when the neighbor says that he's sure that he saw David on December 24th, and you have another neighbor who says he heard shots December 24th. Obviously, that can't be
Right.
the shots that killed David or his family either.
Wow.
So and then when you then think about maybe New Year's, right? If
Mm-hmm.
someone is going to kill them, if someone, is holding them hostage, or if David is going to kill everybody, New Year's Eve would probably be a good time, because fireworks are going
Mm-hmm.
off all night.
Yep.
So, but even then, even that wouldn't line up with the police's their 3-week theory. And I think what Catherine said, is based on the decomp, is that's where you can really tell. That's the best way to tell who died first, who died second, who died third. And she's done some great
Exactly.
videos
Yes.
on that. And I would go with that.
Wow. So that's true. Like, I mean, I just find it really strange for this to happen the way they say they did. That nobody would hear gunshots. Nobody would see activity.
Seven shots. Yeah,
Yes.
7 shots.
And I mean,
Yeah.
that's very strange to me. It, like I said, just gets stranger the more I think about it. And that is very crazy. I thought maybe that somebody would have heard noises or them fighting or arguing or something. I mean, it just seems like this just happened out of nowhere. And then you have the police, they're saying, if I'm correct, that the bodies were there approximately 3 weeks. Is that
That's what they think. That's what they say.
But the
Yeah.
evidence that, from what I can tell, what Catherine and other people have shown, is that they were not there that long. Like, just from the
Correct.
composition of the body. That's strange.
Yeah.
That's really strange, Greg. Wow. All right. Well, I think this was a good first interview, my friend. I mean, I'm sorry I kept you so long.
It's
I
all
know
good.
I'm going to think of another 100 questions as soon as I get off with you. I'm going to be like, I forgot to ask him this. But I want
It's
to give
all
you a
good.
chance, my friend, to talk about your website, if you have one. Talk about your Facebook page. Tell me about your book. Tell me what you got going on. Let everyone know, my friend.
Yeah, sure. So I wrote a book last year, or I mean, it came out last year. It came out in 2020. It's called The Gray Stage. And so you can buy that. You can go to my website, thegraystage.wordpress.com, and you can download it free. So it's if you want a physical copy, you will have to pay for the physical copy. But if you just want to actually read it, you can go to my website right now and you can download that free. All of the documents that I have, all of the photos that I have, everything I have, you can find on the website, and you can download them. You can read them for yourself. You can go through them. We have a podcast with the same name, The Gray Stage, and we have a YouTube channel with the same name. I have a Facebook page that I haven't really utilized that much with that
Okay.
same name, but I'm now starting to post stuff on that Facebook page because I've decided to work on kind of a documentary on this case. I don't know, it may take me another year or so,
That
but
would be
so
amazing.
on,
I would love to be a part of
yeah,
that.
absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to have you part of it. And I'm hoping that it's just one of many. I'm kind of treating this as kind of like a trailer, kind of how David treated his 2012 trailer, in
Okay.
order to get a real documentary, a big budget documentary
Oh,
made
that'd
and
be
stuff. So
perfect.
that's pretty much what I'm going to target this as, is try to use this to hopefully pitch it so that a documentary filmmaker will take it, and with the big budget, we'll be able to do something very powerful with it. So mine will, I've been I've had a ton of notes here of things that I'm kind of focusing on, and like
Wow.
videos that I'm gonna make. So I literally just started thinking about this maybe yesterday, and I wrote down some stuff. So I've been posting some of these. No, I know you can't really read that, but I've been
Okay.
posting
No.
some of this stuff
Okay.
to my Facebook page. So if you follow the Facebook page, not the group, the Facebook page called The Gray Stage. I'll be just posting. I'm gonna post something, hopefully every day, at least every week, of just kind of what we're gonna talk about, what it should focus on, and that's. I mean, it's nothing that we haven't talked about in my 20,000 other videos
Yep.
or anything,
Yep.
but I do want to have just one condensed video for everybody to just who is just kind of getting started. I don't know if you've ever watched the documentary series called Missing 411.
Yes. I love that.
So yeah, I mean the way that man, if I could get it into the hands of somebody who can make a film like that,
Hmm.
and I think the biggest challenge is just a lot of people. There's so many cases out there. There's so many different things out there that this case has just not got the attention that it should yet. So I'm hoping to make a documentary. I'm just going to post it to YouTube, to Rumble, things like that. That pretty much will be pretty much what I have in my book too. It'll pretty much be all that same stuff, but just to have one long video, because I'm saying I don't have like one long video that is just covers everything, because it is impossible. But I
Exactly.
figured, well, if I could do it with a book, I should be able to do something similar with a film. So that's what I'm working on. It's a kind of ambitious project, and I don't know how long it's going to take me, but that's what I'll be working on here
That's
within
amazing. And
for
then
for
you're
the
all.
next year or so.
That's amazing. And then you're also administrator for the on
Hmm.
for David Justice for David Crowley and family, if I'm correct.
Yes, that is correct. Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group.
Okay.
And then there is a Justice for David Crowley of Gray State, and that's a Facebook page. So Dan Hinnon created the Facebook group. A guy named Thomas Lapp created the Facebook page. Right
Perfect.
now, Dan Hinnon is pretty much running both of those. So, but yes, so I am an administrator in the Facebook group, Justice for David Crowley and Family. We have about almost 4,000 people a part of
Nice.
that group now.
Nice.
So, and we get new people, so many times, so many new people. It just is just nonstop. There's always somebody new that wants to join. We get some of the spam people, some of the trolls, and it's not hard to really weed those people out. I mean, the rules are pretty much just we want to get justice for David Crowley
Right.
and his family. That's really
Yeah.
it. And we
Yep.
are very, very lax on it. Dan Hinnon, when he created it, he was very lax, and we still keep that too. So, obviously you'll be able to tell those trolls, and they do get weeded out, but we do try to respect everybody's freedom of speech,
Yep.
and as much as possible, we'll let you go. We'll let you talk about whatever, as long as it's relevant to the case. We have some people that post literally just spam stuff, and we have people post like porn links and stuff like that too. So
Exactly.
you can tell how deep the hatred for the group goes.
Oh, for
But
sure.
whatever,
I
whatever.
got a rude
It's more
awakening when
fun.
I did that with Catherine, that interview. I thought I was gonna get a couple comments, and then after an hour I got like 50 comments, and I was like, wow, like
Wow.
there's a lot
Well,
of
that's
people.
50 views. There you
Yes,
go. It's
yes,
50
and
views.
I'm totally, and I didn't mind it. And I'm like I said, I just didn't. Anybody that posts a link, I'll say it again. If you want to post a comment, keep it respectful. You can say whatever you want, as long as if it's important to the case. If you do want to do a debate or an interview or anything like that, I'm open to that too, and I'm sure I could set that up. And just don't post any links because they posted a lot of links in my comments, and I just removed them. I'm not going to let people start posting tons of links in my comments. But if you want to leave a comment, I'm all for that. Like I said, I want to hear both sides. But is Dan Henning still doing work on this? I haven't seen many
Yes,
interviews with him.
absolutely. Yeah. He definitely is. Yeah, he gets on some of them. He covers a lot of different topics, and he has a lot of different groups. But yeah,
Okay.
he's a big part of our monthly podcast too. So on the first of every month, we always put out a brand new podcast. So if people want to subscribe to that podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, just type in the gray stage, and I'm sure it'll pop right up. We have
Okay.
tons of shows. We're on episode number 22. The next one will be coming out at the end of this month. So again, on the first of every month, we are putting out a brand new podcast. It's based on my book. So all of we just kind of read through the book. Dan Hannon reads through that book, and we just kind of talk about it. So I think we're only on like page 90. It's like a
Oh,
200 page
okay.
book. So we're not
Okay.
even about halfway through yet.
Wow.
But
No,
I'd
that's
love to get you on one of
I
those
will definitely. Oh,
podcasts.
I'm going to be there for sure. I would love to do that,
Awesome.
and I'd like to actually set up maybe where we could do have a group where maybe Dan and you and Catherine and me and some other people all kind of get in and just kind of. I would really like to do a interview with Dan Henning too because I
Sure.
mean he's.
You should. You should.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm definitely interested in doing that because I've seen a few videos with him and he does make a lot of great points. And you can tell he's done a lot of research into this. And that's what I
Yeah.
really like about that. I like the fact, as I told Catherine when I did her interview with her, when I had her on, is that that's what I really liked about her channel was that she actually wasn't just giving her opinions, she was actually showing evidence, same way you do. You show it. Like, that's the one thing I love about your channel too, is that you don't hide any of the files or any of the documents or anything. If you get it, you post it.
That's
That's
right.
that's amazing. That just shows that you're very transparent and you're looking for truth. And if you get evidence, you're going to show it either way. And that's all we
Yeah.
can ask for in the end, right?
That's
we
right.
don't we don't we don't we didn't know David personally. We didn't know Kamel, and I always tell people that I'm like I'm going just by what I'm researching and what people have told me, and I want to make it very clear, like you stated, that I'm totally open to the fact that David could have done this, and he may not have done this. Uh,
Yeah.
and you've said that too, and Catherine said the same thing to me on my interview. When I interviewed her, she said she's open to the fact that he could have done this. So I just don't
That's
want
right.
anybody listening to this thinking that I'm trying to stay in the middle the best I can, hear both sides, and uh, let the evidence take us where it goes. That's what all I can say.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, man. So I want to thank you, Greg, so much. For your time. And I know it went a little long, but I've been wanting to do this interview for a while, and I had a great conversation with you. I mean, as I said, I'm probably going to have 100 questions for you after this, and maybe I'll get you. I definitely will get you on again if you want to come on.
Sure.
Discuss
Absolutely.
some other
Yeah.
things. I'd love to go on your podcast. You know what I mean, and listen, discuss your book and that. I think that would be great.
Sure.
You know what I
That
mean?
sounds like fun, man. Yeah.
Sounds
That'd be
great.
awesome.
Oh, definitely. So thank you so much for coming on here, Greg. And if you want to put this this interview, I post it. If you want to put it on your Gray Stage Pod channel, you're
Oh,
free
I'd
to
love to.
you're free to do that.
Awesome.
Yes, that would be
Thank you,
great.
man.
More eyes on it, the better, I think, and then the more discussion, all the better too.
Thank you.
So
I really appreciate that.
not a problem. Thanks for making the time to come and see me this morning. Now I should say, in my time, anyways. And you have a great evening, or well, I should say, great morning. I'm just getting,
Great morning.
yeah, great morning, and I'm looking forward to having you on again.
Thank you, brother.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
take care, my friend.
All right. You too, man.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye now.
Well, there we go, friends. Another great interview. I tell you, I am really, really enjoying this doing interviews with a lot of great people that are very passionate about what they speak about, and this was just another example of that. Great conversation, and as I keep saying, the more you look into this David Crowley murder suicide case, the deeper it just keeps going for me. There's so many different theories about what happened, and oh, let me just get comfortable here, people. There we go. And it's just so many theories out there, and it's hard to stay in the middle, as I keep saying. I find it very difficult to do that because you want to look at it as somebody who's doing an interview and looking at any of this information and evidence. You want to kind of stay in the middle and look at both sides and kind of see where the evidence takes you. And it's sometimes very hard to do. Keep your personal feelings out of it, your personal emotions out of it. And I find that very hard at times with this case. And as everyone knows, there's definitely some people that are in the middle that really don't know if he did it or not. But there is definitely a group on one side saying that he did it. And then there's another group on the other side dug in saying that he did not do it. That I can guarantee you. That's the one thing I can say for all certainty. And I want to just let everyone know, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching so much. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these interviews. I got many different interviews coming up in the future with many different topics. It's not just going to be all just Gray State and David Crowley. It's going to be like a lot of other things, crypto, talking to other fields that I find interesting, maybe some paranormal stuff, kind of like what we were discussing tonight. I find that very interesting. That's why it's called Crypt Ricks. I've been thinking. It's just stuff I think about. And if anybody that wants to come on and has from the other side of this argument or discussion, I should call it, if there's anybody on the other side, that wants to come on here and wants to be respectful and be serious, and they think that they have a good case to prove that David Crowley did do this and that he is totally guilty of this and doing this, and you guys, anyone feels that they want to have a good discussion about that, I am all for that. As I said at the beginning, and I've said it several times during this interview, I'm just looking to find where the evidence takes me and find the truth. And if that proves he's guilty, so be it. If it proves he's innocent, so be it. That's the way, evidence is evidence, and that truth is the truth. And I would love to have you on. Definitely, I'm willing to do that. I'm not just trying to look at one side and not give the other side their moment to have their discussion. So I am totally for that. And I would find that, it'd be a great interview. So if you do want to do an interview with me and you have an opposing view and you think that David Crowley, all the facts are there and the evidence is what it is, and you have the evidence, that he did do it, and that's where you want to stand and discuss, I'm for that. Just go ahead and send me an email, and my email is basically www.cryptricktattoos@yahoo.com. So CRYPTRICKTATTOOS at yahoo.com. I'm sorry it's a long email. I am going to get a better email name for this show. It's just one that I use all the time, so I figured I'll use that for now till I get one that's a little more appropriate for the show. But definitely send me an email if you want to come on and have a discussion if you have an opposing view. I just ask, as I always say, keep the email respectful. If you leave any comments in the comment section, I please ask that you definitely voice your opinion, but leave it. Please keep it respectful, and don't post any links. I'm just warning you now. If you start posting links in any of the comments, I will remove them. I don't want it just spam full of links, and that's just the way I'm going to run it. So don't even bother posting a link, because if you do in your comment, I will remove it as soon as I see it. So there's no point even doing it. Leave all the comments you want, and you have my email. If you want to send me an email, just for the title of the email, just you can say podcast interview, or David Crowley interview, whatever you want, just to give me an idea of what you basically are requesting, and I'll definitely read that email. And if I know you're serious and you want to have a serious discussion, I will definitely get you on this show in the future. I'd love to hear your side of the story and your thoughts and everything like that. I think, as I said at the beginning, I think that, you know, people have opposing sides. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle. That's not always the case. I'm not saying that at all. But that's what we're hoping to get to, is the truth. And I just find this a very interesting subject and a very interesting case. There's so many things moving and so many, as I said, theories going on, that it's just very interesting to me. And uh, love having discussions about it, as you can see. So, enough of me babbling. I tend to do that. I babble on and on. And if you made it this far, I want to thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this interview, like and subscribe. I was told to say that. I always forget to say that. That would be great. And I wanted to thank you all. Have a great evening or a great morning, depending on where you're listening from right now, what time it is. For me, it's morning. So I just want to thank you all once again. Great having you here. And I hope that you come and enjoy me for my next interview. And have a great evening, guys. Take care.